Thomas, member.
Nancy Knight, member.
Terry Waite, member.
Wendy Radcliffe, member.
Okay, we do have a forum. Quorum. We have a quorum. Okay, first on the agenda would be the review and acceptance of the meeting minutes of the November 8th meeting. We had reviewed these last meeting and asked for some further, or some elaboration on some of the verbiage. So Terry's expanded a little bit. Any questions or comments? Yes. Okay. Can I have a motion to accept the meeting minutes for November 8th?
I'll make the motion to accept the minutes for the meeting.
Second motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Right, these minutes for November 8th are accepted. Now we're going to the meeting minutes of December 18th.
My first comment's kind of general and just sort of grammatical. Should we try to keep everything in the past tense? Like, line 25, Harry will open the public hearing,
Agreed.
just for clarity. It seems like that's how most of the other minutes have been
Yes.
done.
Acceptable this time, perhaps, and we can change it
Right.
from here on out.
Does that make sense, Carrie?
Sure.
Like a little bit.
And here's a small grammatical thing again, on 155, to facilitate the finding. We use the
What was that, Wendy? Sorry.
Oh, okay, line 155, If she facilitates wayfinding, she can get rid of the and the of. And just 172, the two to be two right.
Okay, we can have a motion to accept the meetings of December 13th, meeting minutes of December 13th as amended.
Okay. I'll second.
All in favor? Aye, opposed. All right, the meeting minutes of December 13th as amended are accepted. This morning, we're having a design review for a proposed subdivision. And prior to that, Tara Bamford has a kind of a review of PUD development review she'd like to present to the board to go through for the purposes of knowledge and reviewing, doing the design review.
So you have in front of you a handout that says plan unit development, and that's just an annotated version of those pages from your proposed zoning. If it passes in March, this is what you'll be dealing with, and so because you're kind of previewing that, I wanted to just kind of touch on some things in the process. So if you see bold underlined, that's my annotating. That's not really in your zoning, and the things in the squares is all comment. So just to talk a little bit about the process, if you look at the bold underline at the bottom of number 2, approval, where we say the approval process for a PUD will follow procedures for a subdivision or site plan and can occur in concert with it or with the first phase if it's phased. You also have a one-pager, just because I know that you don't deal with a lot of applications. They have it, right?
Mm-hmm.
A one-pager that's the subdivision review process in your packet. Just to kind of spell out what we mean when we say follow the procedures for subdivision or site plan review. That lays out the steps of the conceptual design review, accepting the application and public hearing and so forth. So when you get an application that's for a PUD and a subdivision, you want to make sure that you're dealing with it as 2 separate approvals, even though they're following the same process. So that means when you do a notice, you'd notice, the notice would say that you're meeting on a concept plan for a PUD and maybe a design review for a subdivision, but it's important to keep those as 2 different items. The reason is that when you approve the conditional use permit for the PUD, you're approving some waivers of internal setbacks and the open space being able to be grouped and things like that, the 4 things that are laid out. Those get vested and you'll record a document that has those things that are part of the PUD permit. The subdivision itself could change. That doesn't mean that the applicant needs to come back in and start all over in talking about those waivers. Those are part of the PUD permit. So even if it travels through the process like one thing, you wanna make sure and keep those approvals separate, record them separately. And what those look like can really vary. I've dealt with one PUD that's the size of a small town and is in a 11 by 17 sheet with a list of uses and densities and all on it. I've been working with another one that's a 2-inch 3-ring binder. That's the concept plan. So it really varies in terms of how much the applicant wants to have vested as part of that permit approval and what the board is looking for as conditions in order to give those waivers. So each one is gonna look and feel different. In the process, the application itself is number 3, the concept plan, which lays out some things that you're looking for, but also says any other information the board may reasonably require. That's because every application is going to be different, and every request for waivers on the setbacks and whatnot is going to bring to mind some other things that you might want to see or learn more about. Look at the second page. Think about it. You could actually make a checklist from this. With number 3, the concept plan, A3 being the application requirements that make it complete. And then what do you look at as review criteria to make the decision on the PUD application is going to be found in 2, it's 4, A through F, and it's 5B really. So in number 2, one of the things you're gonna wanna look for and check off is it'll meet the use limitations of the zoning district it's located. In some cases, there are no density requirements. You need to be, able to vote yes on A through F in 4 to grant the permit. And also 5B, that the development plan is one integrated land use rather than an aggregation of individual uses. So I think that this, together with your 1-pager on the steps of the process, will kind of help you keep track of where you are through the process as you get to the application, assuming that this passes in March. Are there any questions?
Wow, yeah. That was a lot to soak up.
Yeah.
Okay, so
I could have made it 2 hours and charged you for that, but so I'll give you the 5-minute version.
So if there's a subdivision application coming in and it's intended to be a PUD, you look at it as basically 2 different items.
Yeah, you have to grant the conditional use permit for the PUD before you can approve that subdivision.
So the application says, I want to subdivide, I want to make it a PUD. You consider all the PUD information first.
The application should say, here's my concept plan for a PUD. It might look like this. The subdivision that comes in under that concept plan might look like this.
Okay.
And yeah, this is for your benefit too. How to get through this.
I guess it is.
I guess I don't have any other questions until we go through it, and I'm sure the first step I'm going to have a question. So
I'm
I'm glad you're here.
Away for your February meeting, so I wanted to think ahead a little bit on that, where you might be too.
Okay, does anybody else have any questions or?
And yeah, the 1-pager on subdivision process, that does go with a 2-hour training that I do. So it is a lot, and there are a lot of fine points. I'm always available for phone and email questions too.
Okay, good. Then why don't we proceed with the design review
the conditional use permit. The application's for a conditional use permit,
Oh, okay, for a conditional use permit.
correct?
Okay. And just so that everyone is aware, we will be doing the design review based on the amended zoning ordinance that's up for vote at the March meeting this year. And we can't make any basic decisions or conclusions on that until it's been passed by the town.
Right, you can't really accept a final application,
Right.
but you can be given applicant feedback on what, you know, what you're willing to waive and so forth.
And that during this process, nothing would be binding on any party at this point. That does not happen until the application. So with that understanding, Bill, did you want to present your applicant or your?
Yeah, I have one question though. Is it possible to go through this planning process before the meeting in March and the approvals are the approvals are in place, but they're conditioned upon the town's approval of the vote on the zoning ordinance?
I don't think so. Because
So does that-
that's a binding final action, a conditional approval, and I don't see how the board would do that on something that isn't available to you.
Okay, if I was going through a regular subdivision, I would have to comply with any proposed changes, correct?
If the changes were gonna take away your right to do the thing, then yes.
Okay.
But I
If they're gonna
think, I
grant
don't think
rights-
it's resolved on if they're
On the-
gonna grant, I think that might be a question for the town attorney,
For
for the town attorney.
Yeah, I think that's an important question. One of the issues in here is timing. And relative to timing, there's a good chance that this project needs to get in the ground in May. And I don't expect final approval until after town meeting, but I'd like to think that I'm here for a conditional use permit, and if everything's in order, it would be nice to get the PUD variances approved so that we could move forward. And there's a lot of engineering and stuff yet to be done before you come in with a preliminary application. But I don't want to spend any of that money until I know that the variances are being granted.
And variances isn't really the right word, but
Well,
and you can have the subdivision application looked at concurrent with the PUD application.
but to do
My
that,
concern was that you don't want to have one or the other.
the problem is there's $25,000 to $35,000 to be spent in engineering based on granting of the PUD.
And that's why you do the PUD permit first.
And that's why I think I'm here today.
And when we talk about variances, what we're talking about is number 4B,
Right.
where it says the planning board may permit exceptions with respect to 4 things: to internal setbacks, the setbacks within the subdivision itself, within the PUD, street setbacks, open space, and that's not the overall percentage, but it's saying that it can be lumped all together rather than part of each lot, and the building proximity, assuming, of course, that you get the fire chief and code enforcement officer to sign off on that. So there's 4 things that the PUD permit lets you identify different dimensions than normally called for in the zone. That's really what the PUD permit is, saying, well, okay, it doesn't have to be what the zoning says, it can be this other thing, and here are the conditions we're putting on that to make that be okay. And then that gets recorded, just like it was a plan of the registry of deeds.
But Tara, those decisions can't be made until the March planning board meeting because the PUD that they're working under, isn't that one of the amendments?
Well, that would be my take on it. a different opinion might come from your town attorney, but that's, my opinion was that they can't even do it conditional, because that's a final decision on something that isn't in existence yet.
But they could give Bill a sense of, yes, we're going to approve these
Right.
if it's approved at town meeting.
Right, they could give all that same feedback.
I mean, the only risk that Bill is taking is that the question does not pass at town meeting,
Right.
right? I mean, the planning board can go through the whole process, so they're not starting from ground zero at the March planning board meeting.
And that could even enable, possibly the board to be ready to accept a final application and have a
Right.
public hearing at the
Right.
March
At the March
meeting,
meeting, we could,
rather than make that two different steps.
right,
If these were,
if that's all right with the board, but I
If-
mean, you just won't be able to give the final decision until you find out what the zoning ordinance looks like.
right, since there's only one more meeting between now and March, I wouldn't see it being further along, seeing the board further along in their thinking than that.
Right.
So what you're saying is that the board considers it as if everything was passed at the town meeting.
Yeah.
Discusses it with the applicant.
Yeah.
With the understanding that this is all based on acceptance by the town.
By the
And
town.
it's up to the applicant to determine what risk he wants to take with that.
But you're gonna give him an indication of, yeah, the PUD looks okay, and if it passes at town meeting, it'll get approved.
And, or that, here's what we're gonna wanna see for setbacks.
Right.
And building proximity, so that the subdivision can be planned. But yeah, nothing can be signed and recorded until.
Right.
Is that understood?
I think so.
Okay.
Do you understand?
I saw it.
I've come close.
All right, did you wanna, under those circumstances, present your,
Yeah, I have a concept plan and it might look like this.
okay?
Well, that's a good start.
Bill,
Bill, you wanna do it up here so that
Where-
they can
wherever you'd
see
like it. Where's
Yeah,
Bob?
I think right here, cause then the camera can see it.
It's off the lot.
I'm assuming it's a cross country.
Yeah. Anything else you want to know?
Bill, I need one of those, whatever you're handing out.
I'll give you a complete set.
Awesome, thank you.
Let's plan on doing this like a court case where we have exhibits and mark them
Okay,
as exhibits.
okay.
Just so you can make a list of everything.
Everything is done. Okay.
Okay, let me run through the stuff that I got for submittal. We'll see how it does. This plan here, which is the top plan that I gave to the planning board, is a plan of the existing conditions and the subject lots that are part of the PUD. This is Golden Heights Road here, and Golden Heights Road goes up to Moose Crossing, the triplex that's up there. There's a lot on one side of that. On the other side of that is the land that was originally subdivided for the Diana Golden Adaptive Training Center, if any of you were on the board back then. But it's a fairly large lot here. There's a smaller lot here, and there's a large lot here that is unbuildable. It's largely wetlands. Does anybody have any question of the lots that are in question?
Right up where Waterville Place is. And by the title lot.
Waterville Place is over here. This is Snowsbrook?
Snowsbrook.
Yeah, here, so Waterville Place is over here.
And Bill, where are the one condo that got built up in there? Where is it?
It's right here.
Oh, okay, so it's above that.
Yeah, it's shown on the plan, right,
Alright.
in light color.
I see.
Here's a location map, site map, which was required. Everybody, this shows existing wetlands. There's a little stream that comes down here. There's little pieces of wetlands here, a couple of large pieces here, a little stream that comes through here, and a large wetland in this area here. Everybody understand where we're at?
This symbol.
Yeah.
These are all unbuildable. Yeah.
So what you're looking at now is the concept plan that we've come up with so far. I have a pointer, but I don't seem to have one. Well, here's what we've done is I've adopted a bunch of the smart growth and development principles that have been popular for the last 15 or 20 years. This is an existing road, Golden Heights Road. This is Valley Road. Waterville Place is over here. This is the existing multi-use trail. It comes here, actually goes two ways here, and goes out into the south end. This is a dedicated 10-foot wide walking path that was approved during the subdivision of Moose Run. This trail has been relocated over here from here, which was approved in the Moose Run subdivision. This part has not been used, but it's largely constructed. And this plan puts absolutely as much density onto this land as I think we can possibly get. And as we move through the process and as the engineering happens, I wouldn't be surprised if this will get reduced by maybe a couple of lots. We're showing 24 lots here. They're all similar, but a little bit different. We would be building two internal access roads, one here and one here. This would be internal, in essence, a driveway. It's an 18-foot paved road. And we put a hammerhead turnaround here to meet the needs of the fire department. And the property lines run to the middle of that access road, and that road would be a right-of-way and would be a right-of-way that is common to what's currently being called Brookside Village. And that road would be maintained by the Homeowners Association, not the town. It does not meet town standards because it does not have a dedicated 40 or 50 foot right-of-way. The way we laid this thing out is every lot is typically 55 feet wide where we would put the houses. And we see the houses located facing out on the multi-use trail in the front, but not in the back. My vision is every one of these homes would have a front porch facing the multi-use trail. In almost all instances, the access is off the road in the back. Garages might be attached or detached, depending on the individual lot. So what we've done is we've come up with homes that could be as wide as 35 feet with a 10-foot setback on each side. So we're looking for a reduction in sideline setbacks, 10 feet to building wall. I've talked to Chris, and it's okay with him if eaves and bay windows and steps, covered steps to get into a building come into the setback area. So the setbacks is a wall-to-wall setback. The current setbacks that we deal with are to the eave portion of buildings.
So we want to, Bill, just answer your question because you intimated that you'd like to have porches on them. Would the porches be inside the setback or outside?
Yes, they would be within the setback.
They would be within the setback.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's only the entranceway up to the porch.
Well, for example, in this thing here, I would anticipate the entrance to the house would be
Yeah.
here.
Right.
And you're probably gonna have a couple of steps and you need an entrance over it. In this case, it's not in violation of the setback adjustment that I'm looking for, but if it was over on this side, maybe it would be. I'm proposing the typical depth of these lots. They're typically 100+ feet, and it varies to accommodate the terrain, wetlands, multi-use path, and so on. So all the lots have a minimum width of 55 feet, 35 feet for the house, 10 feet setback, and a depth that's typically 100 feet plus, which gives you enough room to put your home, your garage, and some exterior parking on that. And keeping in mind that what we're trying to do is I'm trying to accomplish or approach the densities we'd see in a condominium, but doing it with single-family home sites. There's also an opportunity here to combine these units, possibly, lots, and do duplex units. But right now, the sales staff at Waterville Valley Realty thinks that the market is for single-family home sites.
Are these 2 stories, single story?
I'm not representing how many stories the buildings are gonna be. The stuff that I've been looking at, look at houses with square footage between 1,200 and maybe 2,000 square feet. They might look like this. I just put this here so there's a concept of what this might look like. Relatively small houses, front porches, maybe half the front porch would be a 3-season room. And then, you know, a garage either attached or detached in the back. Could be added later if someone wanted to build a house now and realize that they need a garage later, they'd have room to do that. To accomplish this, the area out, this area here, we're calling this the Brookside Natural Area. This whole area would be common to the Homeowners Association of Brookside Village. There are some upland areas adjacent to Snows Brook that are very cool. I don't know if anybody's ever walked out there, but there's an opportunity to put a gazebo or a picnic table or something out here. So when people walk their dogs and stuff, they've got a place to go to and come back to. The units in the back, I think, would probably have, you'd have garages facing this internal driveway. The units would probably have parking underneath and units above. There is no state required infiltration for drainage for this project because there's no alteration of terrain permit that's required to do it. So all drainage would follow road lines and go into existing ditches and drainage structures, which are designed to accommodate that flow.
You've got this example of a home, the front of the home faces Valley Road, and the garage is in the back. Now that would be on one of these front lots right in here.
Correct.
On these lots right here, is that reversed so that the front of the house?
Yeah, it's probably reversed. It will accommodate that building. You might find that some of these have enough slope to them so the two-car garage is actually underneath them with 2 stories above that. You know, I don't know. I think the individual planning for homes on all of these houses would be the same, or would require some differences. They've got this driveway wrong, but for example, this lot here, the driveway would come in the back and access in the back and go this way. That's the only lot. Although you might be able to access these 2 lots in the back from this hammerhead turnaround here. I'm not sure at this point in time. Sewer line extensions would run along here. They're spread out here and here, I believe now and here, but sewer line would have to be extended to here. I believe the water lines would get extended in this area and in this area to accommodate these things. Chris thinks we're gonna need at least 1 fire hydrant here, possibly 1 additional fire hydrant here. Is that correct, Chris? We would, if we had detached garages or someone wanted a storage shed or something on here, we're asking if there is no setback required for buildings on the same lot. All setbacks are from building wall, eaves, bay windows, entry steps may encroach into the setback. The front setback that we're looking for off this property line is currently 35 feet. We would like to reduce that setback on Valley Road side of the project to 30 feet. We'd like the side setback for the internal lot lines in Brookside Village between individual lots to be 10 feet from the property line, wall to 10 feet. The setback from the paved edge of the internal road back here, we would like that to be 10 feet. I think in most cases, you'll probably find it'll be 20 feet so that you've got 2 parking places. But if it's only 10 feet, you could still have a parallel parking spot here and a regular parking spot over here. So that would work. And then the rear setback from this is the United States Forest Service here. This is the existing road that comes in along, and that's an internal driveway, I think, comes in along Moose Crossing. And there are no buildings adjacent here, and there's a stream here. We're looking for a 5-foot setback on this whole back property line to here. That's it. Anybody have any questions?
I do. So the ordinance doesn't let the planning board waive the setbacks adjacent to other properties of the district. So I think they would need to see a 35-foot setback on the plan, the left-hand side of your plan against the LDR, and 20 feet in the back against what's in the rest of the DC district.
So this setback has, all along this back property line here has to be 20 feet.
The Forest Service is written as 5.
Oh, so this
in
is
the ordinance,
5, but then the rest of this goes to 20.
Yeah, the ordinance doesn't let the planning board alter that one.
Okay.
The 4 things they can alter in PUD are.
Are you saying we can't change it on Valley Road either?
I didn't say that. They can alter the front setback on the road and the internal setback.
Okay. So the only setbacks that I'm proposing that are not acceptable is the setback here that's 5 to this
I
point.
can't speak for the board to what's acceptable, but they can't make exceptions to those 2.
Okay, so that has to stay at 20 feet.
Correct.
Whoa.
Is there a way to, what would be the mechanism that he would have to follow to get that? Is that
a
a,
different zoning ordinance amendment?
okay,
Yeah.
all right.
I mean, typically, you don't ever see that as part of a PUD because that's
Okay,
someone else's property
Yeah.
that you'd be encroaching on. It's generally, it's a community decision, and the planning board's making a community decision about the street setbacks.
Right.
And the internal is, well, that's their application. But as far as surrounding properties,
Okay.
that's, you never see that waived in a PUD or plus.
well, not waived, but is there
Sort of, no.
is there a ZBA exception or anything that can be
No.
done or not?
No.
Okay,
Well,
Good.
the ideal thing today is look for a conditional use permit. So this distance here in this area would change to 20. And we'll lose some lots, no question. We might lose as many as 5 lots as a result of that.
So I noticed, I couldn't see this on the 8.5 by 11 I had, but today, that this is a utility and drive easement. Is it-
It's a private right-of-way, 40-foot right-of-way, but it's in private ownership.
Is all this land behind this proposal, is that private? This,
It's private to.
which direction is that, north?
the northeast, yeah.
It's private to either this point here, or it's private to this point here. From here, this way is all private. This is Forest Service boundary.
I guess I was trying to get at, is it in any way a street when we talk about being able to make it, okay,
No.
even you won't.
So, Bill, when you say that that's private property from that point to the left, is it your property? You know, it's not your
No.
property?
Are there houses there? Are there houses there?
No, well, it doesn't matter legally.
Uh-huh.
There's a triplex here. There's a house up here. There's a house over here, which is actually accessed through Moose Run. And this is a lot that will eventually have something on it that's accessed through Moose Run.
So to the left of the drawing is where, what's it called, Lost Pass Road,
Yeah, Lost Pass Road's
over there.
But, what happens if you do that, some of these lots will be shortened up. And the question from a marketing standpoint is, are you better with a smaller house, maybe with no garage? If on the upper side is the garage underneath it, is there still room to do it? Or do you need to combine a couple of these lots together so your houses are wider and less deep than you can accomplish down on this? I don't know the answer to that question, but if you can't grant the exception, you can't, or whatever it's called, if you can't do it, you can't do it. We'll go back and rework it a little bit, but it definitely ends up in a reduction of density.
So, Bill, conceptually, what you're proposing to do here is basically divide this into individual lots and then sell lots. You're not actually building these houses or anything, or,
Well,
you know, I mean, it'd be then up to individual homeowners, whoever bought the lot, to come in with a plan for what they propose to build, right?
That's a possibility.
Oh, okay,
But however, because you've got lots so close together,
yeah,
you don't want to sell these 4 lots to 4 different people. These 3 people, or this guy builds, and then he lives in the middle of a construction zone for the next 10 years. This is
right,
tight stuff. So, my sales staff and the one consultant I've talked to have all come to the same conclusion, is a developer is gonna own all of this land and they're gonna build the houses themselves and sell
okay,
lots with houses on it. So you can go in and you can methodically go through the building process of this. You might sell this lot for construction of a house in 3 years from now or 4 years from now. That's typically done. And then if you're not here by then, you give somebody the opportunity to switch or something. But by and large, with a project this dense, you really need to be selling an end product.
That makes a lot more sense.
Beg pardon?
That makes much more sense.
Yeah, I really don't see another way to do it. I think to a degree, maybe you could do it, but it becomes a logistical, a
right.
whole nother logistical
So
problem.
the common driveway, you would, and the water and the sewer lines, they would go in the beginning?
Yeah, if I was gonna do it,
Yeah,
I'd start over here
right,
and test the concept, because the utility extensions here are
right,
much less than the utility extensions here. This is largely serviced by water and sewer and has a short road. This, it only has water and sewer to this point here. So there's a very substantial amount of money to
Right.
go in this direction.
okay.
So you gotta get approval, I'd want approval for the whole thing. Doesn't cost much more to do that than it does just for this. And then, it's logical that a developer would start on this parcel and move this in this direction.
I think it'd help Bill think about what he needs for the next meeting and the one after. If you went through the application requirements for the PUD in section 3 and let him know if there are other things you think at this point you want to see as part of the application, and then kind of go through the requirements for granting the PUD permit and give them any feedback you have at this point on any of those conditions in section 4.
Let's talk about landscaping a little bit, because just like building a condominium complex of this density or greater, by and large, in the developable area, all of the trees are gonna come down. You're gonna see some trees left along the property line. You're gonna see trees left in the wetlands areas, but all of the area in light and medium green, eventually, as you move through the process, will be, the vegetation that's there now will be gone. And then the dark area here are areas that would get re-vegged with appropriate landscaping that goes between buildings that are 20 feet apart. And you gotta be careful, because for those of us who've been in Waterville for a long time, we're now seeing what the problems are with the pine trees and the spruce trees and so on that were planted 10 feet from the building and now are causing mold and mildew and remove problems. But I fully endorse going through the process as Tara is suggesting.
Okay, you're talking about the planned unit development sheet that you sent out.
Right,
The three concept plans.
right, so that's what will be in your zoning that you'll need to see to accept it as complete. And this is an opportunity to give him feedback on what else you might wanna see as part of that PUD application.
But realistically, these darker green patches, that's gonna be grass.
Say that again?
The patches between the houses, it's 20 feet. That's gonna be grass.
Well, I think anybody's gonna, if,
In other words,
you
like,
can really create some nice outdoor patio areas with shrubs that are 4 or 5 feet high. I'm amazed walking around cities sometimes. I unfortunately just spent a bunch of time in New York City, and you walk along and all of a sudden you look, and in these building complexes are these 8-foot by 8-foot wide outdoor patios that have shrubs about this big, very private, very nice. If it was me, I would be looking for more shrubbery between units, but stuff that doesn't grow.
right, but as we try to imagine what it would look like when it's finished, looking out from Valley Road, there are gonna be no trees in that area until you reach the upslope that is private land.
You're probably correct.
In a PUD situation where there's common land, and then you have the individual lots that are individually owned, is there any sort of association that would govern what the landscaping would be? And
Oh, absolutely. There'd be a homeowners association here, just like there is a Cascade Ridge or Moose Run or a place like that, for a bunch of reasons. One, you gotta maintain the roads. Two, you're gonna own this. And three, when you build houses closer and closer together, they've gotta look more and more alike. They've gotta share the same color scheme, they've gotta share a lot of the same architectural features, and that color scheme has to be maintained going in the future. You build a lot of wood-sided houses, whether they're shiplap or clapboard or shakes, but I would require they all be earth toned, all the roofs have to be dark, so they look like they belong together, just like a condo. The buildings in a condominium complex look like they belong together. 15 years from now, you don't want anyone to paint this thing pink. So the homeowners association has to be strong enough to be able to do that. Think condominium type ownership. It could very well be that the market would like to have somebody else completely taking care of the yard and the exterior of the building, just like you do in a condominium. And if so, that can be written into this association also. That's a great way to guarantee that the buildings get stained when they're supposed to get stained, and re-roofed when they get re-roofed, and that the landscape gets maintained. And in a small, tight subdivision like this, you don't want one person who, for one reason or another, doesn't want to or can't take care of their property. So it could be just like a condominium, except it could be single-family units instead of multi-family units. And I don't know how that'll shake out at this point in time.
I guess I'm thinking that perhaps that ought to be, what the requirements of that would be, might be good to have in the application.
I think doing that at this stage is premature. I couldn't tell you what that's gonna be. By the time you granted final approval for the subdivision, one of your requirements are that the documents be submitted as part and approved by you as part of that process. They would be done at that point in time. But today, other than what I just told you, I don't know what they're gonna say.
I guess that's what I'm saying. We were trying to tell you what might be.
If you did that, you're gonna kill the whole process. And correct me if I'm wrong, Tara, but what the PUD process is, it says, okay, before you go through the subdivision regulations for this, which requires the homeowners association documents, here are the things we need to grant so that I'm comfortable spending the money to go do all the engineering for it. And by and large, what we're looking at, I think, is what are the setbacks that are acceptable to the planning board? If I can nail these down, and if the project is still viable, then I'm willing to go spend the $25,000 or $35,000 to do all the engineering and legal work for this.
I
I'm
think-
not gonna do it in advance.
Right, the way that it would normally hang together would be, as Terry's saying, the PUD permit would say any subdivision application that comes in needs to show articles of association, showing how the road's gonna be maintained, et cetera, and then the subdivision would have the actual details. The piece that you'd be looking for is maintenance of the road, but also a way to get the funding from the homeowners to maintain the road. Because that's a common missing piece in some of these articles of association. And one of the things that leads a lot of communities to have to take over roads that they didn't intend to.
Just to clarify, this might be more of a question for Tara, but so say this first bit is developed and the feedback from the market is that, oh, you know, these are great, but one owner is interested in buying 3 lots and building one building. In our approval, we're approving what is set out here and not allowing for that type of exception, right?
No, you're allowing, for a development application to come in for this property with setbacks 30 feet from the road instead of the normal 35, potentially 20 feet between buildings rather than the normal 30-foot separation, 10 feet from the internal drive versus 20, on the condition that you see articles of association at the time the subdivision comes and so forth. That doesn't mean that someone has to make the setbacks that size or has to do this many lots.
So even though we would approve this PUD as we see it, as it's developed, it could change and that we would have no say over that?
You're gonna sign and record a development agreement, not probably this drawing. This would be, this is just a concept plan.
This is gonna change. We know that, because these setbacks become 20 feet.
No, but whatever is the final thing, and I know it's not this that we're seeing today, but whatever is presented finally, even if it's done in phases, that will be whatever we agree to can't be changed as, even though it's a
But
TBD.
the
Just to
concept,
clarify.
I mean, that's why you're approving 2 different things. One is a concept plan that
Right.
has certain parameters. And here's an example of what it might look like. But the other piece then is a subdivision plan that comes in. And that's just like any other subdivision plan, except it's gonna have different setbacks.
So it's more based on the subject, okay, I got it.
So when the
That's what
subdivision-
somebody would need to change to come
Conceptually, what we're doing here in the PUD at this stage is saying, okay, take this piece of geography, these lots, and on those lots, we're willing to say you can we'll live with these setbacks, these other conditions.
And up to this
But
many.
subject to, you're gonna have to come in at some later date when you get specifics. And there'll be subdivision plans and site plan reviews and everything else.
Correct. I think you're also though gonna wanna say up to this many lots, up to this many residential dwelling units, right? You're gonna want in that PUD permit to put a maximum number of lots and probably dwelling units.
Should we put a minimum number?
Yes, good. That's to your point.
Good idea.
Well, it-
Because, I mean, we're approving it for higher density, and we don't
Yes.
want to not have the density,
Yes,
right?
Well,
but that was the point
Certainly
of your,
things you can negotiate and because you have to be convinced that in order to give these smaller setbacks and the larger number of lots and units that entails, you have to be convinced that it meets all these conditions in number 4 and 5B that it's one integrated land use, so I would think you could make an argument in the arrow. I mean,
But I would add to that, that what we're looking at here is what, 24 units? That if this type of plan is approved, that we actually achieve this kind of density. And that it doesn't go in the direction, as you mentioned, somebody buys 3 lots, somebody buys 4 lots,
No, that's
then
my
you change the
point, yeah.
concept completely.
That's exactly my point.
Yeah.
But Bill, correct me if I'm wrong here. Conceptually, what you were saying was you'd start with the left-hand side to see if there's a market for this concept, which by definition means that the right-hand side may never happen.
That's true. And if it doesn't,
So,
if
you know,
the subdivision's
somebody come back
all in
with-
place,
Right.
you can always merge lots together. You can do
All right.
grounding line adjustments just like you can in any other subdivision.
Right.
And, you know, I mean,
So in that sense, the PUD concept goes, what we're basically agreeing to do is saying you have the potential to do this, but that's it. There's no obligation to do it in any way.
well, there never is, but
No.
you could ask for it to come in certain phases too. I mean, I think you could negotiate together on the phases so that there's kind of a check-in after, if that left-hand side is the first phase.
the only assurance I can give you of trying to achieve maximum densities is the infrastructure here, water and sewer and everything is, I did some numbers, it's in the neighborhood of $400,000, okay? If you're gonna spend $400,000, you're not gonna build one house.
Yeah,
No.
It won't work. So the way that you achieve these, justify doing this is I want to maximize density, okay? However, if you, I've got this plan, it's final approval, you've done it all, we're all happy. Joe Blow comes in and goes, these 3 lots over here, all alone on that side of the thing next to the wetlands are pretty sweet. I'd like to put one house there. I'll follow your design guidelines and all that, but I want to put one nice big house over here next to the Forest Service overlooking the multi-use path. Here's my money. I'm gonna take it,
Right.
you know?
But is there a way, Tara, to, you have to approve PUD first, so that he can do his engineering, so that he can bring the subdivision plan in, get the approval of the subdivision plan. Is there any way you can tie that final approval, which is, they're both together really, that the PUD becomes approved only if the subdivision plan, the way it's presented to the board, is followed through? If at some point in time, as Bill was saying, somebody wants to come in, combine 3 lots, then it negates that portion with regard to the PUD. It has to revert back to the original setbacks and all the other.
that was the point that we're, because what's the point of granting these changes in the setbacks if the density isn't achieved?
Right,
Well,
that gives Bill the opportunity to present his whole plan, and if it follows through, he still has all the setbacks that he's requesting. But if it kind of falls apart halfway through it, we're not stuck with the reduced setback.
And
Well,
likewise.
let's just talk about the realities of the
Yeah,
situation.
right, sure.
There's a lot of risk in doing this.
Absolutely.
Okay, huge risk. This is a great plan. My sales staff are excited having a product that is essentially like being able to sell new condos. And we know how tired a lot of our product is in Warrenville Valley. They think they can sell 4 or 6 of these a year. That's huge for everybody, okay? However, if you say, well, if you don't do this, it's gonna negate all of this.
Not all of that, just a portion.
Well, I'll tell you what I'm gonna do. This lot will go on the market, 1 piece of land. Next week. I'm not threatening, I'm just giving you the realities. And the rest of the stuff goes on the market, 1 piece of land, right? And somebody else can figure out they wanna build 2 houses here, or maybe 3, or do an estate.
Yeah,
That's
it's-
fine,
it's
but that's
gonna-
not what we want.
It's gonna be vested. I mean, I don't think there is a way to do that. It's gonna be vested. Once he does substantial construction on this permit, then that approval is vested.
But isn't that approval really based on a particular subdivision?
Yeah, but let's look at existing subdivisions. Look at Moose Run. Okay, there's a situation up there in Moose Run where somebody wanted a house and they didn't want a house built next to them, so they bought the lot next door. Okay, perfectly legal, perfectly okay. Would we allow somebody to do that this year? Maybe. And it's no different than any other subdivision in town relative to, I want to combine lots, I'm gonna merge these two lots, I'd like to adjust this property line. I mean, I don't think that this PUD process changes the nature of the subdivision.
Except that it relaxes the rules based on the particular subdivision plan.
No, it relaxes the rules to enable a subdivision plan, but you could not see any subdivision plan, just a concept plan.
Well, that's all well good, but what you're saying is that once everything is approved and the permit is in hand, then you can say, the hell with this, I'm just gonna throw this subdivision right out the window here, and I'm gonna sell it as, like you said, 3 different lots, and they're no longer have to be bound by the setback of the zoning ordinance. He's basically gotten approval for less setbacks requirements for these same lots that now
And
exist.
I think that the reason that people don't generally worry about that is if somebody buys a big piece, they're probably not gonna put their house 10 feet from the road. Or
Well, yeah, but, well, no.
That's not necessarily the case.
That's where I struggle to differ. I mean, we have people that will push, history has been people push the limits.
Yeah.
And try to get exceptions to every rule that's out there.
I'm not an attorney, you might wanna check
Yeah.
with town council on that, I can say that I haven't ever seen it done that way.
Yeah. Let me ask you, is all of this village commercial property?
Yes.
It's all zone village commercial today. All right. And let me ask you a question about the PUD. If we grant, approval to construct a PUD, and there is the ground rules that govern the PUD, how long are those approvals for? Are they forever?
Once it's vested, once he's done substantial construction on it, then yeah.
So
Then they're
if
exempt
he
from future
decides to
zoning
phase
changes.
and he gets the first phase built and then decides, well, that's it. I'm gonna really change this concept. Because it just didn't work in the market. We can't renege on the PUD idea.
If it's changing anything in your approval, then they need to come in, amend the conditional
But
use
all
permit.
we're really approving is that within this set of land, you could live with the following restrictions reduced from what they were before. I just wanna, I'm not saying that's bad,
I mean,
I'm just saying
your
that I just
concept-
wanna understand what we're agreeing to.
Your concept plan can, as I said, I've dealt with a concept plan that's a 2-inch 3-ring
Right.
binder. It can have as many details as you require to be comfortable with this. And one way to think about the parameters might be to look at the second page of this handout, that's number 4, the conditions, that these are what the zoning is gonna say, and it probably says now, I don't know how much different. The main thing you're changing in the PUD section is bringing it from the site board to the planning board, so that it can go along with the subdivision plan. Most of this is already really in there. But these are the kind of things that you're looking at, and that you can require more details on and make be part of the approval.
And There is, on a planned unit development, I know we have site plan reviews and subdivision reviews. There's a timetable that specifies when we must act, right? Is there such a thing here?
Yeah, you really need to follow the same process because
Okay,
the state law lays that out as the board's procedure on plat. It doesn't
Right.
actually say subdivision application.
so once he formally applies for this concept, we're given 60 days. to
From
kind of
when
make up
you're satisfied, you have everything you
Yes,
need and
right,
accept it as
yes, right.
complete, and that's the big,
Sure.
you know, any other information which the planning board may reasonably require. Once you're satisfied, you have everything, then you have 65 days to have a hearing and make a decision. And it can be in concert with the first phase of the subdivision.
What does that mean?
You could arrive with, if you were gonna bet on approval of the PUD, you could arrive at that point with an application for the final application for the PUD permit and a final application for the first phase of the subdivision. They could be two agenda items that travel together through the process.
Just something doesn't seem to be continuous, because we're tying the PUD approval to the subdivision. They're connected. I know they're two separate things, but they're connected.
To the land, actually, isn't it?
Right. I mean, a PUD can be, well, if Water Valley was built today, it would be a PUD. The whole thing would be a PUD.
Well, I just don't see the need if they're not connected, and if they're not tied one to the other. What's the purpose of doing a subdivision plan? Why not just come in and say, I got this piece of land here, and I'd like it to be subject to PUD rules. And then, well, if the planning board says, well, okay, yes, that's what you want more density, then you just say yes. Because it really doesn't make any difference what the subdivision is. It can be anything, because they're not tied together. Once you give approval to both, the subdivision can be scrapped, and the PUD is tied to that land, like it says. It's
Can
tied
you
to
say
the
that
land.
again? I'm not sure I'm tracking on what you're trying
Well,
to say.
in the concept here, someone brings in a subdivision plan and says, I want to make this a PUD. So
Right,
the board considers the plan has been presented and say, okay, I think this will work, and I like the idea that it's a high density, that's what we're trying to achieve. And so therefore, we approve the PUD concept. And then the subdivision plan comes in, and we approve the subdivision plan based on the PUD concept. But apparently they're not linked in any way.
So let's look at number 5A. That might help you a little bit. You can put constraints of timing in that PUD permit, just like with a subdivision.
Okay, but even timing. Once that PUD approval is given by the planning board, that piece of land has the PUD.
But if they don't follow the required timing, it's not vested, it goes away.
If this subdivision,
well, that was the question I asked before, and I thought you said that it didn't go away. If we
it's not,
specify that it goes away.
you need to specify in the development agreement what makes it vested, how much is it within what
Okay,
period of
all right,
time.
all right, misunderstood what you said. All right.
It's just like a subdivision that way.
but if this got developed the way it's supposed to, and then up to here got developed the way it was supposed to, and then there was a change, and now you basically can combine all these lots. You have 1, 2, or 3 large lots that are not restricted by the regular zoning ordinance. They're restricted only by the PUD.
I think you're correct. I think that's one of the dilemmas.
So these are the things that it's helpful out these design review discussions to think through. If that was a concern, would it be possible to put in the approval and development agreement that these setbacks go with lots of a certain size, but lots of a greater size would be subject to the normal setback requirements? If that's a concern? Whatever concerns you have in granting this should be in that development agreement.
I just think it should somehow be tied to the approved subdivision, not necessarily locked in, but certainly to the concept of the subdivision. Because that was the reason for giving the approval.
Yeah, can density itself be a qualifier? Like, say, you know,
How do you
I don't
control the market? What do you do if
Right.
What do you do if the real estate market is good and they build 10 and then it tanks? Do you take approval for those 10 away? It's just not really a workable thing that way.
Right, and as Bill said, if somebody comes along and says, I wanna buy this, he's gonna take the money.
Right.
Sure. So Bill, your concept, if we approve the PUD, what do you believe you have the right then to do? Can you start selling, you know, if you do the engineering and you come up with an original plan, particularly on the left-hand side, can you sell a lot?
No, not till you approve the subdivision plan.
Right.
So, but can you do a conditional? I mean, I know because we've gotten into fights about this before.
No fights, Bill.
What-
What he can do is come in before you with a subdivision plan that's different.
Right, well, I understand that, right.
That's
and
all.
Just, right.
And he has a certain period of time
Well,
to do that.
can he take reservations? You see, we get
No.
into this. Well, I have to go back and read some of our writings on this stuff. I can't remember what we agreed to do. I know we could put a sign up now.
Yeah, if it's proposed as a condominium under the state's condominium laws, that's a whole different ball of wax.
Hmm.
Here's how my intent to proceed would be.
Yeah,
Waterville Company's in liquidation mode. I don't think there's any
right,
secrets about that.
right.
If I got a PUD approval with these setbacks, with the exception of the one that we can't do, then I'd rework this plan,
Right.
all internal, and I'm gonna lose some lots. I feel comfortable that I'll lose at least 2 lots, maybe more. And at that point in time, I'm gonna estimate how much it's gonna cost to do it. And then I'm gonna go find a builder developer.
Right.
And I'm gonna say, hey, how would you like to buy a fully approved subdivision plan? All the legal work's done, all the subdivision's done, all the architectural controls we've done, and all the permits are in hand. And I'm gonna sell it to developer A.
Right.
And he is now bound by all, that person is now bound, he or she, by all of the subdivision approvals and PUD approvals. And that person comes in. And that person would put in the infrastructure and start building lots. And if it was me, and if I was a younger person, I find this very exciting, I would do it. I would go and I'd pick one of these lots out and I'd go put up a spec house. That's also a model unit. And I say, hey, this is what we're gonna do, boom, 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 and put them on the market. And you might say, oh, I'm looking for a smaller house. We'd like that one there. So, and I do it with a contract to build a house. And so on, that's how I'd move forward. And to be honest with you, we get up here, these lots are a little more difficult. They're a little more expensive to build because of terrain or because they're small or because they're squeezed. And Terry says, well, I'd like my house up there, but I really want a bigger piece of land. Where you put those 3 pieces together and I want a bigger house. Yeah, I'd probably do it. But you've got to achieve a certain density to justify what are very large infrastructure costs. And that's how I would see it proceeding. And if you don't feel comfortable with that, then, I mean, I think that's a logical way that things would proceed. If you're not comfortable with that, then that's a good thing to know.
I think with any cluster subdivision, you can't preclude lot mergers. People have the right to merge lots at any time. In the state.
Yeah, it's just that they've got the right to merge them and the new rules of the PUD apply, not the standard zoning.
Yeah,
rules.
unless you put a differential in the development agreement that says lots over a certain size have to meet the normal setbacks.
And I would find that acceptable.
Mm.
Well, that would tie it to the subdivision to some extent, in a way.
Is it a dumb question to ask, when does a subdivision become a PUD? Or when does a PUD become a subdivision?
The PUD permit just really, a way to look at it is it authorizes him to come in with a subdivision plan that meets these different requirements.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. But is that,
And you'll put a
True.
time frame in it, you'll put a time frame in the development agreement that says you need to see this subdivision application and approve it, and construction needs to start within so many years.
because at least we have definitions of what a PUD means. I'm vague about what a subdivision means.
Well,
It's
we have
gonna
a
be
whole
just
set
with
of
more
regulations regarding
Right.
what subdivision is. But there are some areas of disagreement in there, in which it would be worth reviewing again, you know? Particularly since we're gonna get into phasing, the definition of phasing in it.
That's true.
So we're gonna be careful, about what we agree to.
Because the planning board can waive its subdivision regulations as it needs to make it work with the PUD. It's not like zoning that has to go to the zoning board.
Really? I've never, we have the right to waive our own subdivision regulations.
Correct.
Yeah.
You
Can't
just need
waive
to
the-
put the justification in your minutes and,
We can make the restrictions less, but not more.
oh, you can make them more too if you
I don't
need
think
to
so.
for, yes, you can for their minimums. Subdivision regulations are the minimum requirement.
I thought it was a waiver.
Zoning is a minimum requirement too.
I thought the way it was worded, you could waiver, but not add.
You can waive.
You
You
can
can,
do,
you can waive strict compliance with the regulations.
right.
Yeah, but I don't think we can.
Yes, you
Somewhat.
can make it stricter when you need to for a certain piece of land, they're minimum requirements.
What would you do if you couldn't find builder A to take on this plan?
I wouldn't even go through the subdivision process. It's too expensive.
And I understand that. But what are your other alternatives? If
Sell existing lots.
just piece it off and,
3 lots now.
There's 3 lots now.
Well, it seems like a potentially exciting project.
yeah, it is.
What?
It seems like a potentially exciting project.
Well, I think it's a very exciting project. I wish I was a younger person. It would be fun.
Do you wanna just go through page 2, Ralph? Or have you, while we've been sitting here, just see if there's any other questions that it raises that you want to see them addressed?
Well, I think one of the things that we're gonna have to talk about in this level of density is vehicle parking and access. To make sure that we're comfortable that it's reasonable, you know? I mean, so that's one area. I mean, I know it's a private property, so, you can park cars wherever you want. So I don't think the town's parking restrictions, like, you're not supposed to park off-road, but I don't think they apply here.
Sure, in any subdivision, you wanna make sure that there's adequate parking on the lots, not the street, for a couple reasons.
Right.
fire and ambulance, and also the town could
So that,
throw it over
that's one area in the PUD, and I'm just dealing with the PUD concept that I'd like to talk about a little bit more, make sure that we're comfortable.
Can we do that right now, Bill?
Yeah, so
You have to do it in public
conceptually,
session.
you're gonna build a one-car, your concept would be generally there's enough space for a one-car garage. Is that true?
First of all, I'm not representing it's gonna be a garage at all. I'm
Yeah.
not representing it's gonna be a one-car garage or a two-car garage.
Right.
What I'm demonstrating here is there's an ability for a two-car garage with two parking places.
Right.
Now, my understanding of the approval process in town is when someone comes to build on this lot, they have to demonstrate that they've got at least two parking places for that
Is Chris
For
still
that-
here?
house.
No,
he's
no.
gone.
But-
Is that true?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, it's not a planning board issue anymore.
It's a building issue.
Now
and it
it's,
has to
I'm
meet
applying
zoning.
for a building permit
Right, and it's
for
gotta meet
this
zoning,
particular lot, right?
and it's gotta meet zoning.
Yeah, but I think when you approve the PUD concept and the subdivision plan, you wanna see drawings like that that show that the zoning can be met.
Okay.
Like Bill's giving you there.
So you want, you're
And-
saying you want a demonstration like this for every lot in the PUD?
I didn't say that.
Oh,
I-
well, how do you
I don't-
demonstrate, if you don't do that, how do you demonstrate that you can put two parking places on every lot?
I guess in my recommendation would be you have it for a typical lot, and then I'd wanna see them put the condition in the PUD permit that could be space for parking.
We ought
Off
to
the-
talk
off the
about,
road.
I think
Zoning
for me to feel comfortable,
Right.
I would like some definition of what the minimum parking would be for each unit, or whatever you decide to build, because you're gonna change the dimensions, so, you know.
Isn't that a
because the
zoning
setback-
requirement? If I came in, if I bought one of these lots.
Well, I don't know.
And I'm gonna build a house
PUD,
for myself.
I'm assuming we can change all of that, you know.
I'm not asking for it to be changed, the parking requirements. The parking requirements are two parking spaces for a single-family lot. But the position, I mean, we can go do that, but the position I'm taking is if I came in and gave Chris Hodges an application for building on this lot and I didn't have two parking places, I don't think I'd get a building permit. If I did, you need to get rid of Chris and get somebody else.
Right.
I think it's reasonable in the PUD permit or the subdivision approval to be saying that, yes, this density looks okay, but we wanna see that there can be two parking spaces on each lot. I think that's
How do you do
reasonable.
that?
Well, no, I don't need to see.
No, I don't
in an
mean see it
application,
drawn.
But a statement
Yeah.
in the
permit.
conditional approval of the
Yeah.
PUD to the effect that whatever lots are constructed, there will be space for a minimum of two parking spaces.
I think that's reasonable in the
I don't have
PUD.
any problem with that. My assumption is that that's
Yeah.
a requirement anyway.
That's all I would.
I have no problem with that.
But isn't the concern that if someone has a yard party, how do you prevent people from parking on the access road? Or do
You don't.
That's up to the
No.
association.
That's up to
So
the
how does the
association.
fire truck get down that road?
Well,
That
that's
happens in everything.
it's something we need to talk about, you know? But that's at the point in time where you're probably doing a subdivision approval.
But let's talk about that. How's that any different than Moose Run today?
It's not.
Or
I don't think it is any
Or-
different.
Or
No,
West
I don't
Point
think it's
Village.
any different at all.
than any other place in the town.
Right.
It just, that happens.
That's life.
Right.
Unfortunately, it doesn't happen often enough, but
Right.
not enough parties.
That's the problem, not enough parties. Yeah.
What about snow storage?
Yeah, that's.
These type, small lots, pretty much more than covered with house, 2,500 garage. You have, can you include something on that statement?
On what?
Snow storage?
Where do you put it?
It's like a condo. If it gets real dense, you end up having to truck it out.
And where would they take it down to the common area?
Where does snow get dumped today?
I guess it depends on whose snow it is, huh?
Yeah.
Town snow goes to town, probably.
We don't,
Bill,
we don't.
You're anticipating that people who would own these would use the town recycling and not the town, we don't have recycling anymore. But the town dump, transfer
Yeah.
station, whatever you wanna call it.
Just like any other single-family home.
All right.
And maybe the homeowners association would say, we don't wanna bring it down there, we wanna have the property
Yeah, I
management
don't,
companies pick it
I don't
up.
care
once
which
it's
way to
something.
do it, but there wouldn't be an expectation that we would put dumpsters and service the area. Okay. I'd like to, I think in improving this, the trail network, and I'm not sure what trails those are. But I'd like to go take a look at those and make sure that we're not doing something that we're gonna regret later on, you know.
These are dedicated trails already.
Ski country, what are they, cross-country trails? Are they groomed? I noticed you said that you moved one of them.
These, all of the trails that are within this subdivision and adjacent to this subdivision are dedicated trails.
All right.
That's the way I see it.
What do you mean by dedicated trail? You know, the map, they're designated as a trail.
Well, they're mapped on the subdivision plans. If you look at this plan here, they're designated. If you look at the subdivision plan for that was done for Snows Mountain subdivision, which is what those lots
Right.
were, those trails are delineated. And if you go back and look at the subdivision plan, you'll see that they're dedicated trails.
As shown on this.
Including it's a sewer line service trail, it's an easement, this is the original subdivision. plan we've done
Yeah,
for each
and
lot.
I just wanna make sure that somewhere in the application, we get clarity about what those trails are. And what is being agreed to maintain. If it's basically a designated sewer path or something, I mean, that's fine, you know, I just need to know what they are.
They're subject to the trails agreement that exists with the ski resort. It's a 16-foot designated multi-use trail. And the part of it that runs through the Moose Run subdivision is designated that way in the Moose Run subdivision.
All right.
You know, all of that
So
information
it's
is available,
basic-
it's recorded.
So what you're saying is a designated trail is something that the mountain in theory controls. You know, if they choose to use it or not use it is kind of up to them.
That's correct. But it's still designated as a multi-use.
It's still designated as a multi-use trail.
Right.
But if they choose to not use it for cross-country, there's no requirement that they have to use it.
There's no requirement for them to maintain it for
Right.
cross-country or mountain biking or
Right.
hiking or anything else.
Often those easements are variable, they're width, they can go anywhere on.
What?
Often those easements aren't tied to meets and bounds, they're variable as to where they are. They have a particular width that they have to abide by. But it can meander throughout the lot, almost anywhere. Is that the case with these?
No.
That's fixed?
No, if you look at the subdivision plan, they're specific to the location that they're shown in. And the trails agreement has been submitted for every one of the subdivisions I've got. I mean, we can pull that out fairly easily. And then the planning board required this 10-foot pedestrian easement. It meanders around over to the golf course when Moose Run was done. Will it ever be maintained? I don't know. Does the easement exist if someone wants to utilize it? Yes.
There are some easements that are there now that are being groomed that probably would be abolished with this.
Well, they're running a trail down here,
I think they're one,
next to the road here.
they're running one across.
No, because it runs right into the road up here. comes down here, crosses this stream and hits up here. They're using it here. They're using the trail that comes this way, here, and then they're coming down to here.
Yeah, but there's also one, I think, that went back to just below,
Yeah,
comes across from Dublin.
Right. right. Those are not part of the trails agreement.
Yeah. What about sidewalks out on Valley Road as a result of this subdivision? Someone planned to
I rebuilt that whole sidewalk when I did Bruce Run, and this has a multi-use trail. I cannot imagine.
Where's the wide sidewalk end? You had widened it over in this area before.
Wide It goes beyond here. It comes all the way down to the bridge, doesn't it?
Well, it goes down to where the. I don't think it was all the way to the bridge.
It goes almost.
Maybe that.
I'd have to go look. Anybody remember? Mark, do you remember?
What?
The wide sidewalk that runs from the corner of Village Road and Valley Road, does that run?
It goes all the way to the bridge.
The bridge is down beyond.
Yeah. And yeah,
But I don't think you
it
find there's
narrows.
room for a sidewalk over here, given the existing drainage, the existing wetlands that exist over here.
Yeah, no,
and the
Terry,
multi-use path.
the way that goes up to the multi-use path,
Mhm.
we would not be able to put a sidewalk on that side of the street.
I'm not talking about
I would-
putting that side of the road, I just didn't realize.
I would say
I just want to make sure that that's a 10 or 8 foot sidewalk.
it is. It's an
Cross-
8 foot across from this on the southwest
Right.
side of.
Okay.
And I would say put a crosswalk. We'd have to look at site distances with Jim and Chris, but I think a sidewalk, a crosswalk coming out.
You've got an underpass here, Mark. You've got an underpass right
Well,
there.
there's an underpass, but you also have, do a crosswalk at Golden Heights
Down
Road
here.
across to the sidewalk and put in tip downs on the granite curbing.
Yeah.
To address that. But I think the site distances are fine for that crosswalk. But we can talk about that as part of the subdivision. But I think pedestrian, and remember the plan in the CIP is to connect that underpass with Town Square with improved pedestrian paths. Right, that's in the 2019 CIP. So getting pedestrian traffic from this development to Town Square is hopefully going to be better.
That goes there now.
No, it does, but we're talking about improving the paths, lighting them,
Oh,
rebuilding them all the way around the pond.
oh, great.
So,
All the
yeah,
way around the pond.
All the way around the pond.
Nice.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, so that ties in quite a bit with this.
Bill, one thing that I think I'd like to see is, as part of the application, is some discussion of what your marketing plan would be. I don't want to get into a state where where we have a discussion later on as to what you can and can't do in terms of offering lots for sale or showing people. I'm assuming that even before you come in for you're looking for a builder or something, a subdivision, you're trying to find out if there's an interest. I mean, so can people take reservations? I mean, I think we ought to specify that. So whatever you propose to do, I mean, because otherwise we end up with, you can't do anything, you know?
Put in it whatever you want, because it doesn't matter to me.
Okay.
Because for two reasons. One, my intent is to sell the whole approved subdivision,
Right.
so it's somebody else's deal. But then I can tell you exactly what's gonna happen. They're gonna sell a lot with a house on it.
No,
It's just
well,
like buying a lot.
I don't have a problem, our subdivision regulations pretty clearly specify that. But the PUD concept approval you're asking for here, I just wanna make, if there is any concept that you're gonna go out and show these to people, or, you know, take
Yeah, I might show them to
reservations or
people.
something.
I can show
Oh,
them
you absolutely
anything I
can
want,
do that, right?
but, no, there's no, put in there whatever you want. It makes no difference to me. You can put whatever you want, you put it in there.
Well,
It's not a consideration.
basically, you would be not allowed to take reservations.
This is very different than a condominium. The
Right,
reason why that is so important in a condominium, which we discussed when we talked about trying to increase density, is you go out and you try to get financing, or you've got architectural design costs in addition to all the other engineering costs here. You need some indications that people are interested in buying it, and that's why you go out and you try to get non-binding reservation agreements. But without having a condominium and the requirement to pre-sell condominiums, there's no
but
need for
what
that.
you're saying essentially is with the developer, you know, your plan is to sell this as one block to
Right.
somebody who actually wants to develop it.
Right.
That he wouldn't want reservations that are cancelable.
I can't
As
imagine.
part of the demonstration of that, there in fact is some real interest in doing this.
I don't think that's a problem. I don't think that's the case. But the flip side is, why do you care if somebody gets a non-binding reservation agreement or not?
Well, I can't answer your question, do I care? What I want to make sure is that there's clarity as to what you intend to do or not. And you're saying you intend to do nothing. That's fine.
If you want to
I
say
go
that
with
they're
that.
non-binding reservation agreements, I don't have
Right.
a problem with that, because they're not worth a lot in this situation.
Right, okay.
Okay, this list right here, Tara, that you put together with 3 and 4 with the conditions for plain unit development.
This is from your zoning
It is from
as
the.
proposed, yeah.
Okay.
Except what's in the squares, that's my annotation, but
Okay.
the rest of this language is what will be your zoning afterward.
So an application would include all this information anyway.
That's what you'd be looking for, yeah. But this is a good time to tell them if there's more details you want on any of these items.
Anybody have any further questions or comments they want to ask Bill? Bill, you got anything else you want to throw at?
No, I guess the question is, what's involved in actually getting the PUD approval, subject to approval of town meeting of the process? You know, do you need more information from me? And if so, I need to know what that is, and if I don't, can we find out if we can get approval of these setback changes or not?
Well, I guess we would need to know all the information that's on.
It's all here, it's basically all here, or you can tell me if it's not adequate.
I don't see anything on landscaping.
Well, you're not gonna see much more than what's here. You know, I've told you that the wetlands don't get cut, that all the other trees are gonna get cut down, and there's gonna be low shrubbery landscaping between lots.
It's not indicated on the plan, I guess we need to indicate on the plan.
If I put a note here,
Sure.
is that adequate? That says just that?
I think it should be on the plan, yeah.
That's fine.
So Bill, in this, your concept there would be the creation of a permanent open space here.
Yes, this whole area here
Right.
is a dedicated common area.
Fine.
Brookside Natural Area. Okay. Oh, hang on, is the name good?
Who makes up these names?
Bill does.
He does till he's sold it.
It's odd that for a planned unit development, approval as a planned unit development that would be as specific as to plantings, an architectural landscaping plan, and not be tied into it. Just seems odd to me.
Still can't get by that.
No,
I don't know what you mean not be tied into it. It's,
The whole plan can be scrapped and the PUD remains.
Right.
no, because you're gonna have, I assume, a development agreement that specifies some things like the timing that you talk about in your zoning in 5A. You're gonna say construction needs to start within 2 years. You're gonna talk about phasing, what constitutes the first phase that has to happen within 5 years. And when you talk about the landscaping for a PUD, you're more talking about here's what typical landscaping will look like for these areas rather than a detailed landscape plan for the whole area. It's not the site plan yet.
Well, Bill's asking if if everything he's presented today meets the conditions in number 4. Is all of the board members satisfied with that?
Right, and as you point out, there's no conceptual planning plan, which might be a drawing of what it typically might look like.
What's 4?
Well, in the condition or in the.
Oh, under condition.
in the
Right.
Things that are needed for the planning board to review a PUD.
Right.
Under the conditions, it lists several things that we should be considering. And Bill says he's met all these criteria on what has been presented to us today.
If not, I want to know exactly what you do want from me.
Well, I would feel more comfortable in, I know that you say you're gonna go back and work on the lots a little bit. It is a diagram that basically would show into the PUD where you think, as best you think today, where the lots would be. And on there, show the setbacks.
Right, you need
You know,
to,
the new setbacks, the 5-foot
Right.
setbacks. I mean, I'd like to make sure that somebody can at least get a drawing that looks like that.
you need to see a revised concept plan that
Right.
meets the setbacks.
Right.
That are required. I recommend that you also ask for more on, you don't really have a conceptual grading and drainage plan yet. And
Well,
I
Bill
recommend that you look for more on that.
One of the things that the planning board.
Well,
members
why?
are
Wait,
always
but Bill had addressed that, hadn't he?
Well,
We're saying we need that in order to.
but I don't see a plan,
Okay.
right?
My
I wanna
question would
see
be
the
at this
contours
stage,
and
do we really want to do
Don't
that?
want to go into.
If he's got to come in to do
Know that it
a
has that
development
capacity.
plan anyway, separate from this, that clearly would be part of that subdivision review.
These road alignments are really gonna,
Right, there's
Part
a
of
lot
the-
of
they're
that
gonna
stuff.
they're gonna be part of the PUD permit.
Well, I don't think the roads would be. Well, that's where I'm confused. It's,
Generally, the
PUD
location
versus
of the road is, but not the engineering of it.
the location.
So the way he's drawn it is typical for how you,
But my
See it on
concept
TV.
would be that by the time the engineers got their work done, they would come in and they'd say, okay, you can't put the road right here because of these conditions, so we're gonna have to move it 5 feet
and that's
to
why
the
it's
right.
called a concept plan.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, and so, but none of that's gonna be available at this time.
Correct.
I don't see how it could be unless you did the engineering work. I think what you're asking for, it strikes me as just conceptual approval on the PUD. I think what we're gonna have to dwell on is what are we granting?
Yeah,
Forever.
I think that, in the wording is a conceptual grading and drainage plan, and I think that's a little bit more than is showing.
What would be
Direction
a
of flow, where's it
conceptual?
going?
Yeah, but could it be done without doing an engineering?
Yes,
Without doing
yeah.
engineering work?
right, show the direction of flow and where it's going.
Oh, you mean elevations?
When you,
Okay, we should show elevations.
And just roughly where the water would be.
when you record it with the register of deeds, Bill won't be standing there to point and show the direction of flow. That needs to be somehow shown on the plan.
Most of the stuff that I see has to do with subdivision approval in this list.
Right.
And again, if I understand correctly, the PUD approval sticks to the land. And it sticks to that land. It applies to the land prior to subdivision.
It gives the parameters that the subdivision has to apply.
And you can put a time limit on that.
Mhm.
If nothing happens within 2 years,
Correct,
you go back to the way it was.
right, you have that in 5A.
All right, so we should be able to give Bill the approval based on the fact that, number one, we want higher density. And number two, that it lends itself well to a PUD because of the wetland. And the common area is used well. So is there anything other than that we need from Bill to get to that point? Rather than the specifics of the subdivision, because that comes in later.
Right, that's, yeah, he's trying to avoid doing the engineering work, right, at this stage, right, until, yeah.
The setbacks and the fact that if lots are combined, if he combines how many lots, then he loses the setback exemptions that the PUD grants.
Well,
Right, you want to be kind of working on
Yeah,
your list of things that will go on the development.
Yeah,
Okay.
But it would seem like you've given Bill some direction, some things to add, and as he
right,
maybe comes
the
back.
only thing that I did the setbacks, just to make sure that even in the conceptual drawing, that it's feasible, from a concept point of view, to meet whatever the setback requirements are, particularly the ones, if we're saying, they apply differently when you're dealing with the adjacent property.
Yeah, you can't approve this. This shows the building envelope intruding on the setback to the left and top of the plan. So you want to continue the design review to the next meeting. Give him a chance to come back with one that does and the additional information they've asked for, and then you could give them the go-ahead to submit a final application at the March meeting, and if you're comfortable, schedule a public hearing. If you're comfortable that you're gonna accept it as complete, you could schedule a public hearing for the same meeting.
So what we're trying to give Bill now is to go ahead to come to the next meeting with an application for.
No,
no,
you wanna continue the design review to the February meeting, so he can come back with the setbacks right, and some of the additional information that you've asked for,
Like showing the.
Conditional use permit,
right?
right? Not design review.
It's, this use permit goes through the same steps. It's design review of a conditional use permit.
Okay.
Design review of the PUD. That's the way to look at it.
So it would be with the appropriate setbacks, with the generalization of the drainage flow, making sure parking's clarified in whatever way, right? Are we happy with that show?
Maybe
Well,
add-
no, I'm happy with the statement that, in agreement that whatever lots are so construed, there'd be a minimum of 2 parking spaces per lot.
Some,
Yeah.
Could add some
I'm
typical
just these statement, I don't
landscaping
need a
drawing to the-
drawing.
to that drawing with the, where he did the typical layout, yeah, could add some typical landscaping. That we can meet that.
And there's no requirement for minimum lot size in the BC based on new zoning or
Correct.
PUD.
Right.
Because I was just reading in the conditions of the area on lots for combinations of lots 1 acre or larger in size on the village commercial. That doesn't any longer apply, right?
No, it's all based on the approval that'll take place in March, we
Wait.
assume.
So this is what will apply, that, he's got more than an acre that we're looking at.
That he's using for,
Right.
he's breaking it down to smaller.
Right, but you only need an acre to do a PUD application, is what that's saying.
You have what you need?
What you want from me to be able to grant the PUD stuff is more information with regarding landscaping, which might be as simple as a note on the concept plan.
Yes.
You want a revised concept plan with the setback
Setbacks.
changes that I've got wrong. And then you want to have a better idea of drainage plans, grading and drainage plans,
Or just put some direction of flow arrows.
direction of
To
flow.
show what the stormwater is doing, as you described.
Yeah, and then I think you should be prepared to come in and talk about how long do you want this approval for?
Well, it's 2 years.
I don't know, is it?
Yeah.
So you have language in the zoning, 5A on the front of page 3.
Oh, okay. That says that approval for a PUD in 2 years?
That he has to start construction within 2 years.
Okay,
And complete what's gonna be probably the first phase within 5 years.
Yeah.
You, I think, wanna identify that as the first phase in the plan.
Well, let's talk about phasing, because the phasing is the area that we've had
yeah.
major
disagreements on the
disagreements on. And the planning board needs to tell me how to phase it, because I don't know how to do it. And we got bit on that, so I don't know. How do you phase it legally?
You would be, if, let's talk about that part to the left-hand side of the road. If you identify that as the first phase, then this timing applies to that.
Okay, and does that mean that I don't have to have any of the engineering or subdivision plan done for any of this?
Correct. For the PUD, that's
So-
correct.
So basically, this gets approved, or you go for approval on
Your
this.
PUD permit is
Is the
for the
whole
whole
thing.
thing.
For the whole
For the
thing.
whole thing.
With the caveat that your first subdivision application is gonna, that you're planning for your first subdivision application to be for that part, and that's all that has to happen within 2 years.
Okay, and so then I could go this far for phase 2, and then I could go to here for phase 3, and I could go to here to phase 4. How do you determine that? And
That's just tentative, I mean, that's not really gonna be etched in stone, but the only legal part is you have to identify the first phase for vesting of the permit.
Okay.
The only reason you're talking about what phase 1 is really is because that's what this timeline is gonna, because that timeline of that first phase is how the PUD permit gets vested.
do we all agree on that?
No, well, do we all agree on that? Here's the argument, the discussion we got into last time was under this, you assumed that you had presented the whole thing. And we said, no, we only granted approval for a section.
Well, was that for a subdivision or,
It was for a
so that's
subdivision.
different. That's
Well,
different.
we're talking at the subdivision phase here. We're no longer talking, the PUD, I think we kind of agreeing, conceptually, we can grant approval for you to
But
do the
that's-
work necessary to create this vision, right? But then when you get into phasing, if you want approval for, down the road, like, I want all these roads over in phase 2 and phase 3, there's my plan for all the roads and everything else. Then, and you want to say, I don't need to come back and get reapproval for these, they're granted. Then I think they gotta be presented in some detail, and we're gonna get right back into It's gotta be clear that you're asking for approval for the whole thing,
PUD approval or subdivision?
subdivision approval. At
I
that
don't
point in
think-
time that you choose
I don't
to
think
do it.
he is, and I don't think that that's what
Well, he
this is
doesn't
asking
have-
for.
Well, excuse me, he doesn't have to. But I don't know what he wants to do, and that's what I'm saying, when we got into a discussion last time, it was over this issue. That you thought we had approved the entire thing for Green Peak, and we said, no, all we ever approved was the one piece. And I just don't wanna go down there again when we get into subdivision approval. So whatever, if you want approval for the whole thing, you should present the whole thing.
And
Well,
that's not what we're
And
talking
then
about
call
right
it
now.
phases, I don't have a problem with calling it phases, we're talking subdivision approval, it has nothing to do with PUD.
But I am talking about the PUD, because the reason we're talking
Well,
about
I'm not.
phasing is part of the PUD
So can we stay on
permit.
one conversation at a time?
Well, we don't have a subdivision application to talk about right now.
No, but I wanna, but it's intent down the road to go that route, to do the work and come in with something. So I assume you're just asking for guidance as to what to do. I don't think any of this thing has anything to do with the PUD approval.
Well,
So what I'm trying to be clear to Bill on is that where the zoning says that the construction of the first phase has to be completed within 5 years, we're talking about the first phase of the PUD
That he's been identified.
in a subdivision
I
plan.
don't have a
so
problem.
it's not a phased subdivision approval.
Now,
It's not an approval of this subdivision, and then you add this subdivision, and then you add this subdivision.
you're gonna come in for a subdivision application or
Everything.
not, but
Or what?
you need to decide, you need to identify with the board where it says it has to be completed within 5 years.
Right.
What's that? What's the plan for what can be completed within 5 years? Because that's how it's gonna be vested, so that the PUD permit applies to the whole thing forever. That's how you get,
So you tell me what I have to do to get it all vested, because I don't know. If I've
how much do you
If
think
I've
would
got
be reasonable?
substantial improvement over here, have I invested the whole thing?
Yes.
Yeah,
If
if you
that's what you
identify
told
that
the
as the
board.
first phase and that's what they approve in the permit,
What if
yeah,
I, what if
that's
I
what we're
don't,
saying.
the problem and the place where we ended up in trouble before is nowhere in the town's regulations that any of us could find, is there any good definition of what phasing means or how to
Means, right.
accomplish it?
No, and there shouldn't be as far as the subdivision goes. That's,
Well,
Therein lies the problem.
that's,
that lies the
the
problem.
subdivision is a
He
subdivision.
thought he had approval for the whole thing in the
Yeah,
subdivision,
that's-
and we said, no, you didn't. You
Yeah.
just got approval for phase one.
And that's where I would be in it, is, yeah, if future phases are planned, it's good to know that when you're approving one, but it never should be implying approval for anything else, but with the PUD, it does.
What it really came down to was that you had brought in the entire project and presented it. But then you said, I don't want approval on the whole project. I just want the phase, because I gotta go to the bank and they only wanna do phase one, because that's all their finance. And so that was said, okay, we have all that information and we will approve phase one, which is what we did. Then we came back and wanted to do phase two without coming to the board again. We just said,
No. That's
take
not
the same
case.
information you've already presented. and bring it
Right.
in and
We
do
could
it.
go over that
Phase two.
again,
Yeah.
but my position was that I had provided everything for the
Right.
preliminary approval, and I
Which you
only had to
needed.
come in for final approval. That was where the subject was. But let's not go back
Yeah.
to that. We don't need to go back to that. What I'm having trouble with now is I come in, this is all approved, okay? Go through the whole subdivision process, this whole thing's approved, whatever it is, okay? And then we come in and we build this road, do the utilities here and start this, and we do it within 2 years.
You don't- Yeah,
Okay.
you need
This
to,
whole thing is now vested.
Yes.
you need to
Right, it
start
has to be finished
construction
within
within
5
2
years.
years. And you need to identify what your best guess at this point is of what will happen within 5 years. And then planning board can for good cause extend the time periods, but
I don't understand the advantages of calling it phased, phase one, phase two.
I didn't
I
say
don't
that.
understand how that works.
I didn't say that. It says approved phases. It's trying to say you don't have to build the whole thing within 5 years to be vested, but tell us what you think is gonna happen within 5 years.
So you could say, if I do substantial construction, like here, within 2 years, it's all vested, but I might want 10 years to complete it. Is that what you're saying?
Well, it says 2 years to start and 5 years to complete.
So if I said 2 years to start and 10 years to complete,
Well, that's not what the zoning says.
they're not, they,
The
if I'm
zoning's
following
asking,
zoning, what's the advantages of the, I still don't understand how the phasing comes into play with the PUD.
there,
Does Mark want to say?
Bill, I think if you told the board, this is the entire PUD, everything to the left of Golden Heights Road will be started in 2 years and substantially complete within the 5 years. That's what I will get done within the 5 years.
And what's the
And they-
legal status
well,
of
wait.
this?
If the board says that's acceptable, then the whole PUD is in force permanently, is what you're saying, right, Tara?
and
If
it's
that's what they
really,
all agreed to.
and it's really 7 years altogether. I mean,
Right,
because it's
exactly.
start within 2 years
Right.
and then 5 years.
Whatever
5
it
years
is,
from that.
I think we could probably get on a piece of paper, whatever we agree to.
Right.
I have trouble with the idea it's perpetual forever.
What it's,
But
Well, I think approval
the control for that is that if he changes from that plan, like combining lots, or you decide not to build anything on the right-hand side, it
Yeah.
would say in the PUD document what happens to that land,
Well, that's fine.
right?
I mean,
That's
that's
what you
all I'm
said,
saying.
Tara.
We're saying the same thing, which is specify what it is we agree to.
Right.
Yeah. I don't have any problem with that.
Because that's what you said, Tara, like if he combines lots or
right, you could put that in development.
you can put it in
agreement,
the development.
and if construction hasn't started within 2 years,
What happens?
it's gone.
It's gone.
It's not forever.
So you need to think about, I would think, some proposal from your perspective of what you would want. In terms of, well, I'm gonna start, assuming I start the 2 and the 5 and I meet that, what do you want as to the status of the remaining property? And I would guess that you'd want a proposal.
The any development agreement should articulate what it takes to be vested. And that's what you're talking about in this 2 years and 5 years. What do you expect could happen within 2 years, and what do you expect could happen within 5 years? And then if that's met, then the approval for the whole thing is vested. That's what those timelines are always about.
Okay. I don't have any problem putting the timeline there. My question is, what happens if you don't hit the timeline?
Then you
For
come
2
back
and
to the
5.
planning board for this, the planning board may for good cause extend these time periods.
So you grant the PUD development agreement for the whole thing. And you come in and you do this. Market changes, who knows what happens, you don't go any further, right, within the specified time frame. This land no longer has the benefit of these changes. Is that what happens?
Correct.
That's
The
easy.
same as any subdivision, it goes away after a couple of years if it's not
Okay.
started.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that.
So you'll want in your application to articulate what you expect could start within 2 years and what do you expect could happen within 5 years, because that's how you're gonna have the PUD vested. And I don't know how Warma Valley does this, but it's pretty common for some jurisdictions to not, or to let an applicant not record an approval until they're ready. I have one that's been sitting for a year or two, not recorded, that the applicant only has a agreement to purchase based on them getting their financing. That way, those 2 and 5 years don't start until it's recorded. And
Well,
some
I'm
jurisdictions
struggling
don't
a
want to
bit
do
with
that, some do, I think that's
And the
really.
2 and 5 year are meaningless.
Yeah, that's, at some point, yeah. It's starting to become a concern with this other one that's going on
Yeah.
so long of, you know, are they vested or not, if there are zoning changes? Kind of not, so they're running a risk there too.
Okay.
What really vesting does, Bill, more than anything, is protect you against future zoning changes. You know, like if after a year if the town decides, well, they assume the approval and stuff, and then they decide, oh, we didn't like that so much. We want to go back, you're kind of exempted.
Well, with the PUD, it's also etching in stone these special setbacks that you're letting them have.
Right, that's why there needs to be a drawing like this.
But it all starts with the minimum lot size change.
There is no minimum lot.
There is
That's
none.
right, there is none, there was, now there isn't, which makes
Right.
all of this possible.
Right, but it could very well, I think even under a PUD, I can't remember, well, I have to go back and read all the intent on PUDs. But I don't think there was ever a minimum lot size on a PUD, right? As long as
Correct.
you could demonstrate that you were taking some land out of, some land was gonna be designated common use, it could be
It would have
different.
had to meet the same density though,
Right.
yeah.
Conceptually, it had to meet the same density, right?
But now there's no density.
Can we just run through the things that I have to come back with so we're all clear? I'm gonna have a revised conceptual plan here. I'm gonna at least have notes regarding landscaping. I'm gonna show some arrows of where the drainage is gonna go. Direction of flow. I'm gonna articulate timing and investing. And do you want something on parking in there? I think it's redundant, but it doesn't matter to me.
That will go in the development agreement, it doesn't need to go on the application.
Who's gonna do the development agreement?
It's the town.
And so the planning board instructs the town attorney to draft the development agreement?
Mark, I'll talk with Mark and Terry.
Okay, because the timing on all that is important. If we're gonna move ahead with this, and I can't guarantee I'm gonna, but if I do, we need to move quickly. So
But you said you wanted to start, in other words,
I'm
on the
talking,
land by May.
I'm talking to somebody who is interested in this project if they can start by in May.
Now, when he says they could start in May, that's assuming he's got all the.
That means we are fully
Everything.
permitted, we're done, the guys out there putting
Ambitious.
water and sewer and roads in.
So will you be submitting a subdivision application?
Oh, yeah.
Not until I have
In
a
March.
signed development agreement. And it'll take, because you have a 21-day, all the documents for subdivision have to be in 21 days before the meeting.
Right.
Time gets tight. Might not happen. We'll see. Do the best we can, is all we do.
I think it's generally accepted that we like the plan.
Well, thank you. So, I think it's an exciting plan. How many copies of this do you want left here?
Of what you have now, couple copies.
If I could take one with me, it might help you from afar.
You want to just take that one right there?
Sure. We had 3 to Probably coming from.
We have, you have 4 total here. I think if we keep at least the 3 on the table, that would be great. And we're gonna keep one as a formal copy, and we're gonna actually label each of the plans as exhibits for what was talked about here, so they can be referenced in the minutes and stuff, and you all know what you're talking about.
How about this one, Bill? Can I keep this one?
Yeah. So let's keep the 3 on the table. Well, Tara takes 1 and we'll take 2, but, yeah. Bill, do they have the copies of the picture of the house? Physical?
I don't wanna give you a
Okay,
picture of the house.
that's fine.
It's just,
That's fine.
you know, I
It's
hope it's
acceptable,
gonna
right?
look
Yeah,
something like
No
that, and
problem.
give someone an idea what we're thinking about.
no problem.
It's a long ways from.
Yeah. Yeah, okay.
Tara's taking that, mold, you're gonna keep those 2 there. Thank you for your time. I appreciate your ordering.
Every time. No.
Yeah, we can roll them all together.
Are you headed right out of town, Bob? I don't have to be. Yeah, we can have, you can swing by the office for 10 minutes, that may be helpful. And Mark, can I come back and see you later?
Yes. Yes.
Now, maybe?
Well, no, because we gotta still do the CIP, and is there a way to do it in the afternoon, early afternoon?
After 3.
No, it's only snow here.
I'll be here.
Yeah.
Because snow is over everywhere.
Yeah, we're in the snow globe because of the
Good
mountains.
planning, yeah.
It is, yeah. That's why the ski area is here.
For the town
I mean, I was in the last night. We got quite a bit.
Here, you want it right here.
Several
Well, I wanted to
hours
find a paper cup.
Oh,
the deck,
Thanks, Sharon.
We have them available. That's right. I found one.
Yeah.
You want my seat, huh?
I do. I'm next.
Yeah,
No.
it's hot.
Yeah, we have meetings.
Yeah, it is.
That came out good.
Huh?
I like it.
He says it could be shed
Thank
or
you all for your time.
or so.
Really, when
Before you go,
when you
Bill.
look at covenant, you really can only be looking at whether the road and mechanism to get the money from the homeowner.
That's a concept.
Rather than
Garage, might not be a garage, might be a bigger house, might be a shed. It depends on.
It's all optional,
think about it, some of the stuff is in our.
depending on what the owner wants to do. Once he decides that he's gonna- So what you're selling is-
And your
And then
You control, there might be some control.
There's gonna be a lot of work going on around here.
more,
Says
more.
If he gets that going, there's gonna be a lot of work going around here.
That's good. Just get the construction over. Do it within 4 or 5 years and get it done.
Yeah.
Are you mad at me for being late?
I'm so mad at you. I couldn't even look at you or talk to you.
I'll make it up to you in any way, shape, or form.
Give us new windows.
Yeah,
She needs new windows.
I need a new window. I mean, my view was
Yours.
already stolen.
What can I say?
I have no view. You wanna know what my view is?
Yeah.
I can't talk about what my view is.
Uh-oh.
Because I can hear her. She's not allowed to complain about her.
Oh, no, I can complain. Being,
And you
yes,
do.
my daddy says I can complain about anything that I ever want.
Okay.
I'm gonna sit at the table.
Please.
It's your board that's out of control.
Okay, just wondering.
Okay, Tara, one more. What is the difference between a PUD and something?
Alright, so what do we have next?
Later.
Yeah.
See, there's still wishy-washy in my mind.
We can make sure it's clear for you.
Yeah, you can help.
Right.
Thank you, Tara.
Oh, I do want
Who's signing the contract?
Oh, okay. Before you leave,
yeah, you have it from
You have it.
Mark.
I do, I have
You
it.
pushed a lot of paperwork.
I do enjoy what I do, but I need to take it
Sorry.
too.
Oh, I don't need that much room.
Okay, I didn't want to clutter your space. What I wanted was this.
When
You saw me.
I did it.
I'll need this.
That's why he's our chair. He loses them.
3 sheets.
Yeah,
How was John?
He's doing good.
it's on the third.
Thank you for asking.
I can take it and stand it back.
Actually, I'll take it upstairs and
Right.
we'll have you do that.
Let's go through.
I'll make sure to be back for your March.
Yeah. Still trying to learn it, just like you.
It is complicated.
Yeah, especially from when you come from a completely different world, just like you. It's a completely different world, and it's very
Well, just the
complicated.
basic process really is
Yeah.
a 2-hour training.
Yeah, it's. I think, and then that's what it is, because when I did come into here, with no
Okay,
training whatsoever.
Where do you want this piece of paper?
I have one.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is the CIP.
Mark will be right back.
Okay. CIP committee met with department heads and Mark and went through the proposed CIP for the next 20 years. Basically, it's a similar CIP to the past year with some changes for the current year as the need arose. And the board came up with a statement that I'll read here to be presented to the committee came up with a statement to present to the board with regard to the CIP. So I'll read this first, and then when Mark is back, he'll take he can take the sheets that we've gone through and go through it in detail. The Planning Board CIP Committee has met with the town manager and town department heads for discussions regarding the development of and input for the capital improvements plan, CIP, for the year 2019. The 2019 CIP is generally a carry forward of that of the year for the year 2018 with few alterations. Worthy of note from our discussions are the following. Number one, perhaps it would be good if when Mark is here, he could pass out the CIP sheet, because I do refer to line item numbers on here as I'm reading it. Maybe that might be helpful.
Do you want me to pass it out?
Do you
Right.
want- Yeah,
Oh, yeah, that'd be
let's
great.
do that.
I can't get in any trouble more than what I'm already in.
You're not in trouble.
Oh, I know.
Thank you for that. Road surfacing, lines 2 and 4. Road surfacing line items have been made less road specific. For better pricing, it is intended that several road surfacing jobs will be combined into single projects as the need of the various roads arise. This allows the highway department more flexibility to meet the road surfacing needs. I'm going to read through the whole thing here and then we can go into discussion.
Yeah, we don't have the,
You don't have the,
There's no folding
yeah, I
paper.
think what we need is the actual.
yeah, this is what.
You guys really want me in trouble.
Okay, you can follow down the line items I referred to, the numbers way to the left. I'll read that again. Road surfacing lines 2 and 4. Road surfacing line items have been made less road specific. For better pricing, it was intended that several road resurfacing jobs would be combined into single projects as the needs of the various roads arise. This allows for the highway department to be more flexible to meet road surfacing needs. In the past, they had been more specific as to which road would be resurfaced at which particular day, and they just weren't holding to that. So they decided it would be better to be able to combine jobs and get a better price because the smaller jobs would be much more pricey. Pavilion and restrooms, line item 31. There was discussion of a land purchase by the town at the back edge of the town beach on Corcoran Pond for the construction of a pavilion and restrooms. At present, the beachgoers must cross over the bridge into Town Square and down to the lower level to access the facilities. It was proffered that some may not wish to make the trip and choose closer opportunities to meet their needs. Restrooms or modern portable facilities would be a good addition and promote pond cleanliness. A pavilion would provide a good gathering place for the events and provide a bit of shelter in inclement weather spells. Trail construction and maintenance, line 32. There was discussion of trails and signage in and around the town core in keeping with the pedestrian village vision, study vision. It was the consensus that such a tourist-friendly and consistent with the goals of the master plan, making the outer trails more accessible and easy to get to. And the favorite fire ladder truck, line 53. There was discussion relative to the need of such a vehicle due to the height and reach requirements of the 6-story condominiums, the reach required for some of the homes, and the fact that it allows a single individual to get water on top of the burning structure. The additional response time connected with reliance on neighboring towns for use of their ladder truck, but increased manpower requirements and related costs for individual ladder usage were discussed. In addition, the possible increased liability exposure if the town were to provide less than adequate fire protection, as well as the beneficial effect on insurance rates, were also considered. It was decided that there is adequate need and a justification for a ladder truck. A bond over its anticipated life will put the burden of ownership on those who benefit from it. The search continues for a used ladder truck at a lower cost and which would meet the size and specification requirements. This would require a bond of shorter duration, which may not necessarily result in a lower yearly payment than that for a new one. With these items and some adjustments, it was determined that based on these 20-year projections, the town's needs are being met. The tax rate remains reasonably consistent over the next several years, and the town says it will, if this town stays well within its legal bonding limits. The CIP recommends the acceptance of the capital improvements plan for the year 2019 by the planning board to be presented to the select board. Now, if you have any questions, you can direct
Yeah.
Unless did you have any presentation?
No, the only other presentation is really just adding to what you've said. I included information on our current debt schedule. These are our existing bonds. And then the next page is the breakdown, which kind of expounds on what Terry just said about the plan as presented here meets the guidance from the planning board of the $2.75 or less portion of the town tax rate. And you see our calculations here on this sheet show that in every year except 2023, the plan as presented is within that $2.75 guidance. In 2023, the bond payments, the debt service that we would have, and the cash capital projects that are in the plan would go up to $2.99. But that will vary depending on total valuation of the town and you know, whether or not some of the projects get moved between now and 2023. And we are within 24 cents of the guidance. So that's the only year in the plan, in the 20-year plan, that we exceed the 275. And go ahead.
I wanted to discuss this too, because I think this 302 in 2023 reflects, I'm looking at the tax impact. That reflects the 1.6 or the 1.5 million town
Yes.
office.
Yes,
And I think this figure here was based on if that was entirely paid in that year. Because the actual payments, it'll be bonded and you won't be paying 1.5 million.
no, that's with the bond payments.
That's based on the bond payments, not that full amount.
For 1.6 million, but it doesn't mean that we're gonna use 1.6 million in improvements or additions to this building. So,
Right,
if-
but in that 1 year.
Yeah.
You won't be paying 1.5 or 1.6 million. You're
No.
paying the first down payment on that.
that's correct.
And does
But
that 302 reflect that?
that's correct. It reflects the bond payment.
Okay.
Okay, but what happens is we retire debt, and that's the reason that you see the large decrease in the next year, is because we retire debt, so we have less debt payments before we add additional debt payments. And that is shown on this sheet, okay, where you have the big spike where we borrow the money for the new town hall. In this case, that's what's causing this big spike. And you see the increase in the total debt. And then the next year it drops off, you know, and goes along year to year. But that's what's causing the up and down in the total debt that the town has. The debt payments, the red line, shows that we're maintaining as far as our actual debt service payment on the principal payments. It remains pretty constant. Right around that $500,000 number.
So I have a question
Yeah.
on the road resurfacing.
Yeah.
I thought we should discuss that in 2020, for everything that's been
Wait.
engineered now.
We left it the way that it is in the plan because when we started the engineering process along Tecumseh Road and Snowsbrook Road, we have run into some issues with the right-of-way and the definition of the right-of-way during the survey work that we did.
Right.
And it's gonna take us quite a bit of time, probably all of 2019, to get the right-of-way settled. So I'm not sure we're gonna be able to do the project in 2020. And so we can't get any cost estimates together until we get the right-of-way settled.
What's so complicated about figuring that out?
Well, because when we did the survey, we found that the individual condominium plans do not match the right-of-way that is shown on our tax maps currently. Every one of them is off. So we have to go back to each individual condo development, and we have to legally do some deed transfers between the town and the condo development, and use the established road to reestablish the right-of-way. And that's just gonna take, you know, legal time to do that. But because each plan was individually drawn and each one was hand-drawn in most cases, they don't match the right-of-way. So as far as drainage is concerned and all of that, we can't do the design work on other people's land.
So is the engineering kind of at a standstill?
Yes,
now?
until we can get the right of way settled, and that's what's gonna take the time.
So you think
then-
2019 would be mostly right away?
I think it'll be mostly right away. We may be able to get it done in the summer where we can get the engineering done in time to get a cost estimate to put it back into the plan. If that's the case, if we can get the work done, then we will definitely put it back in the plan for 2020. But I didn't want to reflect that because I'm just not sure. In either case, whether it's 2020 or 2021, we will probably combine lines 2 and 3 into a single project.
And my second question, and this is an unpopular one, I'm sure, is that enough for the scope of work that we're looking at doing with?
Well, until I get the engineering, I don't know, but that's our estimate right now. And remember, we still have a lot of issues along Valley Road because of this Forest Service, and that's
Right.
gonna take
No, I know.
some time also.
Yeah.
And our whole plan will be to go from the I Road intersection all the way around to Village Road, right? Tecumseh, down Snows Brook by the Silver Fox, down the hill, all the way to Village. That's what we want to do. And so that's going to mean that not only do we have to settle all the right-of-way issues with the condo developments, we also have to settle the right-of-way issues with the Forest Service.
Right.
So that could add time.
Is there a certain point, especially with the Forest Service, that we would just ignore that section of road and do what we can?
Well, if we do that, we're going to go back to the high per foot cost. So
Well, just for the section, it's just this one property for
No,
Forest
I-
Service.
yes,
Right.
but I would want to pick another section of road. I want to
Well,
get
exactly, yes.
I want to get the linear footage
No, that's
up.
what I'm saying.
Right.
We would just forget this.
Forget this part and go
push
do
towards
another part. Yeah, and maybe we extend around to Boulder Path Road and do Snows Brook Road around the corner, right? I mean, that might be in lieu of Valley Road for right now.
And this is the outside vendor that would come in and do this work?
Oh, yeah, we can't do it in-house.
And they'll come in for that kind of money?
Well, all right,
I'm
what we
confused
want
on
to
that.
do is we want to get the project cost, we want to get the linear footage up as much as possible that we can afford so that we can get a lower per foot paving cost. What's killing us is our paving cost is 30, 40, sometimes 50% higher than what it could be if we had a larger project.
Yeah, I guess.
And
that
so
I-
we're paying a
Yeah.
premium every time we do paving because we're doing these small sections.
Yeah.
And it just, it costs us a lot of money over the course of doing all of the roads. So the larger we can get the projects, the better price we're gonna get.
Just a question, could you go through what the fund source is?
Yeah.
The designated, the FB/C,
So-
the Bs, the.
Yep. The FB stands for fund balance.
Okay,
And the C for cash.
cash,
The
okay,
B is bonding.
all right,
And then within the there's also a CR, if you look down on line 44,
yeah,
there's also a CR that stands for capital reserves. So most of our capital reserves are for equipment vehicles. So we have established capital reserves for mostly vehicles that we can utilize for not only for maintenance of the vehicle, but also for replacement of the vehicle. So we will utilize capital reserves.
okay,
And the capital reserves are included on your sheet, on the second page of your sheet, as cash capital on line 85. on the back. You go to line 85. It says cash capital appropriation. So those numbers include the capital reserves.
Let me ask you a question, the Pavilion Restaurant, the
Restaurant, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Restaurant, yeah. Is scheduled for next year.
It's
You need
scheduled.
to buy some land, right?
Yes.
Or why isn't there money this year to buy the land?
There is, if you look on line,
Oh,
if you
there
look on
is.
line 67. Line
Okay.
67.
It's the 88.3.
88.
Okay, so there is money to buy the land this year.
Yeah.
All right.
And I think, actually, there's gonna be about a $700 difference there, because I think the selectmen are gonna round that to 90,000 in the warrant article. So we have some legal money in that, or 89,000, so we have some legal money.
Is that the same,
I,
is that the same area where they want to put a chapel?
No, no,
How far?
it,
Be a different type of statement.
so, but we're definitive, no, the chapel is not going there. This is the area between the Golden Eagle and the beach that we're purchasing, the 88.3 that's on there.
Yeah.
The chapel would be, we're gonna talk about it at town meeting, but the concept right now is for the chapel to be located by the road that goes into the back of the beach
Yeah,
from Packard's Field.
Yeah.
The chapel will be located over in that area.
so they're kind of close though, yes?
But they're close, yes, and really we need, in order to put the chapel where they're talking about putting it, we really need to purchase the land behind the beach, because we're gonna have to relocate the road. And when we relocate the road, it would have to go onto this parcel that we're talking about buying. And the pavilion, a section of the pavilion would have to be built, would need that land to be built on, realistically. Is that, so it all kind of ties together, so that piece of land is pretty critical.
I should mention that I would vote this down again on the basis of appropriating 900,000 for a fire truck. If I always thought that the concept was to try to find a used one. And I don't think we should be appropriating 900,000, because it's a temptation to just go out and continue to buy the new one. I would set the limit at 400,000 or something and pick a number, and let's work with that number. But that's just me. It's one person's opinion, and it's not going to change. I think it's a bad expenditure of money to buy a new fire truck, ladder truck.
Well, it's really not a new one.
Well, for all intents and purposes, it looks new to me.
So, well,
New ones cost more.
yeah, the new one's another one, it's like 1.2 or something.
Yeah.
Well, the one you had, I don't think we need to spend 900,000 on a fire truck, period, on a ladder truck. I'm opposed to it.
What do you think?
I find a used one, 400,000,
But with the used one, you're going to only be able to
Well,
bond it
you're
for-
just asking, I'm gonna vote no. I am absolutely convinced that if they look, you can find a used fire truck.
But with the used fire truck, you're gonna bond it for half the time. You bond it for 15 years, so your payments are going to be not that dissimilar.
Well, I hear you, but I don't think this town needs to spend $900,000 on a new fire truck, period.
Well, do you want
Or
to
almost
hear
new.
some arguments? That,
Why?
because
Why argue?
I'm not in the fire truck business.
Yeah.
But what I've understood from the discussions that I've heard is that if you buy a used truck, you don't get any of the warranties that come
No,
with a new
Of
truck.
course not.
Okay, so then you could run into.
Maintenance,
Yes,
absolutely.
yes. Then the used trucks that have been examined are of a greater size. That is, one of the problems, real problems, is that trucks that don't fit into the building would require that the building be changed. That is, you have to take the roof off and do other modifications. So you add that to the cost of the truck, you come a lot closer to the cost of the truck that was leased and now priced at around 900,000. And it doesn't have, the used trucks don't have the facility.
Look, I am, here's what my argument is. They love the new truck. It's as simple as that. And there is nothing in the world, they're gonna throw up every argument in the world to justify why they love the new truck. It's just like the ambulance. We gotta have all these gadgets. We cannot afford them. It's as simple as that, to me. And so if we have to learn to live without a truck, learn to live without a truck. We should be spending money on pavilions, in my judgment. Things that are gonna make this town revive again, not on stuff like fire trucks. And you're not gonna change my opinion. And there's no such.
Evidently so. But if we didn't have a fire truck, let's start with truck, no truck. Then what?
I question, I don't wanna go, they're saying they absolutely have to have a piece of equipment that is capable of getting up higher. I don't agree with that, but that's not my argument. My argument is find the cheaper solution.
Okay. But if you didn't have any truck at all, then I think we would have a much greater predicament than.
I question that. Does Campton have a truck? No.
No.
Right.
But
So I mean, are
Campton's
they
not-
in a are they hell bent on finding a solution to this problem? No.
Campton's
I don't
not a
know.
resort town.
I think that you have to have, especially with a hotel.
I don't think there's any state law that says we have to have a truck.
No,
But-
there's
State requirement?
there's no state law. But I think it's just good business that if we're gonna be a resort town, that we have to be able to substantiate the claim. We have fire
disagree.
protection.
But if affordability is the key issue, which
Well-
apparently is, if I'm not mistaken. from
Right,
this-
well, I think they could find a much cheaper solution.
They could find a cheaper solution as regard to the lump sum, but affordability for a town is the tax payment. How much do you have to come up with every year to pay your taxes?
I believe the town should spend $5 million fixing this place.
Well,
And so I think the tax rate will go through the roof.
yeah, but what my point is that if you buy a used truck for $500,000 and bond it over a 15-year period, as opposed to buying a new one for $1 million and bond it over a 30-year period, the monthly payments are not that different. And so the tax
I
rate
agree.
doesn't,
The monthly payments in that case would be no different.
well, it might be somewhat different because you
Yeah,
pay this whatever more. But
Not a
the effect on the taxes is minimal with regard to the difference and so forth. So if the affordability, if the amount of debt is a problem, then I would say that maybe you've got an issue.
I think we're underspending on improvements in the town, have been for years. Things that make this a desirable place to come and visit.
Okay,
We
but that,
aren't spending enough money. I love the pavilion idea. I think that's a great
I agree.
addition.
but that argument is whether we need a truck or not whether we should buy a new one or a used one.
Well, I'm not gonna argue whether we knew it. The fire chief is absolutely convinced we need to have this truck.
Well, of course.
So what's the difference, I mean, not all of us have been in on the minutia of the debate, what's the difference between warranty for a new one versus an old, I mean. surely
What's the
there's
length of the
real-
warranty on the new truck?
20 years for most of the components. It depends. We have a list. It runs, the automotive is 10 years and the major components are 20 years, including the ladder itself. The only warranty that we've been able to talk about with dealers on the used trucks is a 1-year limited warranty.
What is it that went with our current truck?
Our current truck has been out of warranty for years.
All right,
Right.
Yeah.
but what is it that went with it? What,
I don't know back in the 80s what they did for warranties.
no, but what stopped working?
What stopped working?
Yeah,
The
why?
ladder. The ladder
Something
is
like
not,
the hydraulics?
could not be certified. There's a piece that holds the ladder to the body of the truck. That is failing. The hydraulic system is failing. When they examined the rungs of the ladder have cracks, so they could not certify the ladder as safe. So that took the truck out of service.
And is that?
Where is the truck?
The old truck was
Yeah.
sold.
Yeah, so somebody thought
No,
it was a
It
worthwhile
was
investment or scrap.
It was
No,
scrapped
scrapped.
for metal.
It's totally scrap for
Yes.
metal. That's it.
Do you know what they got for that one?
No, I don't,
But anyway,
but it was less than $10,000.
Okay.
So, those are,
I mean, that's what you presented.
Any other questions or comments?
Is this a decision?
yes.
Yeah. Well, the
Whether we recommend it.
CIP recommended it to the board, but the board has to accept it. So
Yeah.
presentation is accepted. Looks like board. Okay.
2, 3, 4.
Is that done by vote or is it just?
Yes, it's a vote.
All right,
Wendy escaped.
Mhm.
yeah, she got out. I will ask again, if there's any other, does anybody need more time? I don't try to rush it.
One quick question to Mark. The additional $275 for the taxes that we talked about, is that recommended or is it gonna go into play?
No, it is already a portion of, it already is part of the town portion of the tax rate. The guidance from the planning board was that, I think right now our town portion of the tax rate is $8.70 or something like that. The guidance that we got a couple of years ago from the planning board was to, when you put the CIP together, have no more than that $8.70, no more than $2.75 of that be towards capital expenses. That includes all the debt service payments, principal and interest, and the cash capital portion of the budget. So that's what we have tried to do in the plan.
And that's in here.
And that's what this sheet is. That's what the page that's got the gray on it, right here.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
This shows you that of
Oh,
the
yeah.
$8.257 would be for capital expenses. And so we've met it all except 2023.
And you feel pretty comfortable with that?
Yeah, I think it has some reasonable assumptions, like 0.5% growth in our total valuation, which, would be more than taken care of in 2020 if this gets built that just got presented to you. I mean, there's a lot of variables, right? We don't know what's gonna happen to property values, but I think from what we've seen in the past, I think it's reasonable. If, you guys looked at the assumptions too, so. Is that
We did.
accurate?
Bill, did you have anything else?
Well, I'm not gonna, no, well, yes,
I can see your arms are folded here.
No, the backhoe, what is that? Are you gonna lease it?
Yes, we're gonna lease it.
Do we really need a backhoe?
Absolutely. That's our most
Is there
critical.
one currently running?
Yes, but we are spending more and more on maintenance and it
$34,000
is,
a year on maintenance?
no, but it's not about spending that much, Bill. It's about having a piece of equipment that is actually working. That backhoe
That's critical.
has not stopped running for the last 3 days. It's also a plow vehicle,
Okay.
and I mean, it is a multifunctional vehicle. It gets
Whenever
used
you do
every day.
Water line repair.
Water line repairs,
Ditches,
it
drainage.
digs, it cleans out ditches in the summertime. It's used to push back snow over the entire community all winter. This is a critical piece of equipment,
How old is that?
12 years old already. So it's already 2 years beyond its expected useful life.
Yeah.
So we've gotten good service out of it.
Wasn't the other thought, and now I think I'm kind of speaking for Wendy, to try to keep the spending as close to 275 as possible in order to do what I think Bill's sentiment was also, which is to keep making improvements in the town?
Yeah, that's a great point. And
Yeah.
so we, and I'm not advocating additional spending, but the last column here is available monies. And I agree with Bill, and you'll see in the operating budget that gets presented to town meeting, that we're doing things like Bill is talking about with the trails project, with the increased programming in the rec department, trying to bring more people here in the summertime. And this money out here, the margin, if you will, on the 275, right, is money that as we move forward, if the plan remains stable and we have these monies, that part of the discussion that you guys should have is, are there other projects that we should be taking on, or should we be putting more resources towards a particular project so that we are making the investments that Bill is talking about? And that's what this money out here is available to do. You know, there are other considerations like the operating budget numbers and what's happening at the school and what's happening with the state education funding and everything that you have to take into account. But there is some additional monies that you could decide to use or recommend to use. So.
Yeah, because I don't think it's any town core subcommittee group. We talked about, gee, if we had a $60,000 project for next year, what would we do? And now it's kind of too late.
It's kind of too late for this year, but no, looking forward, you got 84,000 next year, and you've got 187 the third year. That some of that may get taken up with the road project being more than we currently have in the plan, or some other emergency need that comes up that'll have a higher priority. But there is money available, and you should start talking about that right after town meeting so that we're in a planning mode and not a reaction mode. So, and you're making Terry's blood pressure go up.
I'm
Talking
thinking
about
more about dropping it to 250. Leave the money in my pocket, but that's all right. I understand.
well, but Bill,
But
you gotta make the improvements.
I think we are making progress. I think that there's been
for
an
the
increase.
long-term
There has.
living versus
There's
short-term
been an
spending
increase in
for
traffic.
I believe so. I really hope.
I haven't seen any numbers, and I can never seem to ever get any numbers.
I don't have any numbers, it's just a feel. When I walk around town, I walk a lot. So I see a lot of people out skiing, they're parked all the way down,
Yeah,
West
the
Bridge
parking
Road.
lots are fuller than they were.
yeah.
But I don't have any basis of comparison.
No. Well, I do. I remember it was pretty quiet around here in the summertime when I moved up here. It's not.
Well, the whole
Nice to
area,
get real numbers.
Yeah, it would.
the entire region is seeing a big influx, especially in the summertime. I mean, I don't know how the ski areas overall are doing in the state, but the state summer numbers are up significantly. We didn't see a large increase this summer in just gross numbers from the Resort Association, but our goal in 2019 is to bring a lot of those people that are currently going up to the Notch, bring them into town here and get, have some of those people here.
This would be their base.
This will be their base, and this will be where they're hiking from. I mean, the state of New Hampshire spent almost $100,000 designing and putting in and operating a bus system from Cannon Mountain to Franconia Notch trailheads. And that was money that they had to spend because people are parking on I-93 to go hiking. And all of that overflow. Meanwhile, we have empty parking lots here in town. We should be utilizing, and those people are all driving right by our exit to get there.
Well, those are topics we can bring up in the next year as far as
Absolutely.
what might be good. Any other CIP related questions or comments? That being the case, then I will move that the planning board accept the CIP's recommendation and forward the CIP as presented to the select board.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I'm opposed.
So. All right. Got my agenda. Old business municipality appointed commissioners. I can't remember what that's about.
We can
The
keep moving
North
on.
Country Council commissioners, so Wendy left, so she is the only one on the board currently whose name is at the North Country Council. As a commissioner, the town is supposed to have 2 commissioners and minimum, and they like to have as much participation in that board as we can.
Okay.
The North Country Council is the regional planning commission for northern Grafton, well, actually, all of Grafton County and Coos County here in the state. And they provide planning and development assistance to towns. They can help with grant writing. They help with planning like CIP development and things like that if a community wants it. They also provide oversight of the Transportation Advisory Committee that's required to submit the transportation plans for the state 10-year highway plan. So each regional planning commission submits projects to that state plan, and that's how the state gets input. And that results in matching grants from the state for transportation projects.
And you're looking for.
So we're
at least
looking
one more.
at least one more, and I know Wendy has had issues with making the meetings because they are afternoon meetings, usually in Littleton. They are trying to move down to Franconia, maybe south of the Notch some of the year.
So if someone gets some interest. they
So if
can
anyone
contact
has
you.
an interest, if they would contact me, I would appreciate it.
Thank you, Mark. John, Conservation Commission?
Yeah, they're doing great. I'm still very impressed with their flow, their energy, and the meeting was last night, went pretty well. They're still talking about the National Resource Inventory, which is wetlands and trees and everything in the forest in this particular area. One of the topics they ran on was the salt in the road. Somebody wrote in and was concerned about the salt in the road. Does it go into the river? Does it damage anything? So what Mark is going to do is run a quarterly, a 3 or 4 test this season to see into the Mad River, see where the salt runoff is. However, we also talked about that there are no reports of any vegetation or dead fish or anything like that throughout the river. So we're just going to keep an eye on it. Somebody was concerned about it, and we'll test that. The NRI also asked the select board for $5,000, a one-time request, and that was for the inventory.
Actually developing, we don't have a natural resource inventory here in town. We've never done one. So we have asked for, and the selectmen have included funding through the Conservation Commission for the development of the plan. So that'll be a budget. It'll actually be in the town operating budget. It won't be a separate warrant article.
What is the natural resource?
Natural resource inventory is one of the statutory requirements, well, suggestions. It's not really a requirement. That Conservation Commissions in the town maintain an actual inventory of natural resources such as water, geologic information. It's an amalgamation of all of the different things that we have here in town for natural resources. For us, it's kind of easy because the National Forest takes care of their own inventory, so we can just access their information. But we don't have any inventory of the 500, 600 acres of privately owned property. So we just want to go through basically with a consultant who develops NRIs and do this inventory for the privately held land.
It's got a lot to do with the wetlands.
Wetlands,
Ponds,
yep.
rivers, streams,
Yep.
trees, all different types of trees. So that are in this inventory.
Geology, geography.
Yeah.
It just basically gives you the inventory so you know what you have.
So as you can see, it's a good group. They're really serious about it. Also, one other thing is it's new to them, to our conservation group. So they're talking with other towns on how they do it. I think we're a little more unique. We're really right in the forest with a lot more rivers and streams and trees. But they're just moving around to check that out, see how it goes. That's where they're at.
Okay. Thank you, John. Wendy's not here, so there won't be any town clerk report. Unless somebody.
Town Core Working Group has engaged an engineer to do the conceptual plans for town meeting for the $150,000 project. So there will be a presentation at the budget committee, a budget hearing, and and town meeting on what tasks are going to be actually done and the scope of work that we need to have done around Corcoran's Pond and along the Snows Brook Trail down to Snows Brook Road.
Question about the sign.
Yeah,
Nice sign, I like it. But I've been asked a couple times by different people.
the back.
The back of the sign, can we put so long sucker or something on it?
Yeah.
Town, I mean,
The selectmen are talking about that.
Okay. Thank you for visiting something.
Well, they talked about that. Their inclination on Wednesday, guidance to me was to start looking at ways to screen it with vegetation. I don't know that that'll be possible given the Forest Service special use permit limitations, but we're They would prefer right now to just put large trees or something behind the sign so that you can't see. So we'll look at that, but find out what the Forest Service says.
How can we talk to the boards and talk to them about some of our ideas? How do we?
Come to a selectmen's meeting or email me or talk to them on the street.
Carrie, any communications?
No.
Great. Okay. Then I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Great, thanks for coming. In this weather.
And the snow globe continues.
Yeah.
This is pretty good for